Hello, everybody. I'm already tripping over my words. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Luke Deckard Show. Tonight, I have Neil Vagg with me again.
I'm
We are
back.
we're back to talk Star Trek Picard. This time, where it's the finale. It's the big Star Trek Picard season 3 finale. And just should we raise a glass right now to Terry Metalis,
Or a can.
the or
Less
can
classy.
Cisco's glass, if you remember from in the pale moonlight. Here you go, or Rick Deckard from Blade Runner. But Terry
Yeah.
and crew, to you, well
Sticking
done.
the landing.
It was something I wasn't sure would happen, and it did wonderfully.
Mm.
Yes, it's there's so much to talk about because we're doing the last two episodes, so Vox and the Last Generation. Probably going to jump all over the place. There's definitely going to be spoilers, so
If
if
you've
you
not watched it, why are you here?
yeah,
Go
yeah,
watch it.
exactly. Go
Come
watch
back
it.
later.
Exactly. Yeah, okay, where to begin? Let's start with we'll just start with Vox. We get,
Okay.
what where we open up with Troy and she's with Jack and she's about to open the door. We're finally going to learn what is behind that red door. She opens it. What are your initial thoughts, Neil?
My initial thoughts are they faked out on us again by
I did
not
too.
telling us.
I did too.
Oh, I was like, like I said to you before, I was literally at the end of 8. I was on the edge of my seat as she was reaching for that door, like, open the fucking door.
Yes.
So
Yes.
when I know it's only a very, very brief period that they actually do, but they
Yep.
faked us out for a minute, and I was like, no, no, oh my god. But I think I pretty much figured it out from the look on her face.
Mm,
There was something about the look on Troy's face that was like, oh, okay,
yes.
we're here. This is where we are.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I was the same when they did that pause. I was like, "Oh no, don't draw this out any longer. Come on. We've been waiting so long." Um but I tell you what, that shot of the Borg cube in the gases,
Yeah.
you know what? It was almost worth waiting 8 hours for that stupid shot. It wasn't stupid at all. It was a great shot. I'm using my words badly. It was such a menacing shot. And
It really was.
I think back to like Picard season 1, and they had the Borg cube that the Romulans were dicking about with. Whatever, it was a Borg cube that they were dicking about with. This, I was like, this was menacing Borg cube.
Yeah,
I
it
felt
was.
You felt the terror.
You did. Yeah.
And the voices that they brought back just felt, that was the strongest Borg voice I've felt in a long time. I don't know.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, it really hit. Like,
Yeah.
really, really hit.
Yeah. So menacing. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And what's so fun is I was having a I was after the episode before Vox, which I can't remember the name now. Was it Surrender or something like that? I don't know.
Surrender. Yeah.
Yeah. The episode before that, after that I made some tweets about that episode, and I can't remember what I said exactly, but it was something along the lines of, why did Vadic say to Seven of Nine, "Oh,
Mm.
it's fitting that
Yes.
you are here for this."
Yeah, we talked about
Um,
this as well. Yeah.
yeah. To which I had some very funny DMs with someone who works on the show to be like, "How the f do you not see it yet?" And like I had the kind of the nugget of the worry of like, oh, I think we're getting back to Borg. I think we're gonna get back to maybe real Borg in there. And and then he was like, this individual was like, yeah, the clue is sort of also in what Jack says, and Jack has a long-winded way of saying resistance is futile.
I can't believe that I did not pick up on that.
Yeah, me neither. And you know what? Thinking about it, and I swear this isn't just like bad memory. When that was pointed out to me, I do remember in that moment thinking, "Oh, he's kind of said that had to play on resistance is futile." But the way my brain works is I see something like that, but then I instantly forget it and don't jot it down like I should do. Um, but the other thing that was pointed out was like the clue was the one of the big clues is the very first bit of dialogue we hear in this season, and it's Picard's best of both worlds log about the Borg.
Yes. right at the beginning.
Yeah. And because I was thinking, what did Beverly say? I was like, no, it's not what Beverly said.
No,
Dialogue is from the logs.
yeah, that's
And
what she's listening to.
yeah, and we were all heading towards. We all been heading towards the board
Oh,
the whole time.
yeah, but it's not even just that it's that log. That log is about them hiding in a flipping gas cloud.
Yeah,
Because I remember at the time thinking, oh well, that's where she got the idea to do what she was doing
yeah,
with Ilios, which was to hide from Vadik in a cloud.
yeah.
But actually, what you were really telling us was that this entire episode is leading towards the Borg hiding in a cloud.
Yes, yes. Hiding in the
I've been
Jupiter
caring.
spot. Hiding in the Jupiter spot. Loved it. Loved it. So it's so I do want to go back and rewatch this whole season, start to finish.
Yeah.
Because there are going to be lots of little Easter eggs, lots of little hints that I think we would have missed, and will become more relevant on rewatch. Like I don't know, do you watch Doctor Who, Neil? I can't remember.
I do.
Okay, so the fifth season, the first season with Matt Smith, which I think is Matt Smith's best season. When you go back and rewatch it, the way that Stephen Moffat has peppered in the silence,
yes,
is really well done. And I didn't notice it until after the whole season was over. I did a whole rewatch. I was in uni and I binged the whole season in one day. So clearly no studying on that day. And I just kept picking up. I was like, oh my God, silence here. These little references all along. I was like, oh, this is wonderful. And yeah, that's definitely going on in Picard season 3.
absolutely.
And handled so well, I think.
They must have really enjoyed watching us all try and figure it out all this way along as well.
Yes. Did you? Okay, so we also get the reveal that Picard's Irumodic syndrome is not what it appears to be. Did you have any thoughts or theories about this syndrome before the show started? I did, but I wondered if you did.
No, I didn't. I've always just taken it at completely face value that it was the thing that came up in All Good Things, and that it was then what killed him, and it might be a thing that he passed on to Jack. So I took it all completely at face value.
Yeah.
You got me on that one.
Yeah. I mean, the minute Jack was infected with something and had the Irumodic syndrome stuff and it wasn't quite right, I was like, well, because I think we talked about this. I was like, the way he is acting is clearly not Irumodic syndrome. So whatever he has is not that. But I definitely did not anticipate this being Borg related. But I did anticipate there being something with Irumodic syndrome. And this is whether this was intentional or not. But in the first episode, there are 2 moments in which Picard seems to be somewhat forgetful, and one is when they're on the Titan, when they first are having dinner with Shaw, and Shaw is they're asking him for what they want to do, and so instead of like doing the runabout, we'll go to this other place, and then we'll go to Starbase Deep Space 6 or something like that.
Yeah, and he says it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, and Picard has a look on his face like, oh, I'm confused. He doesn't have a look like, oh, I've been caught out. He has a look of, I'm confused.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, they're going to pull in his Irumodic syndrome stuff. And there's going to be something with that. So I was right that there was something with that, but none of those scenes sort of, I don't know. If they were setting it up, it was subtle.
Yeah.
But we never kind of went back to them to realize, oh, that was a hint, but clearly not. But it triggered something in my brain. But also, I gotta say, the knife didn't pay off. Chekhov's knife didn't pay off. I'm a little disappointed in that, but that's okay. We'll talk more about Shaw in a bit. Yeah. What were your thoughts on Jack when we're finally learning what the heck is going on with Jack, and we realize that it's Borg? What's going through your mind?
I really liked it. I thought Ed Spiliers played the hell out of it. When Troy storms out of the room and he's like, "What did you see?" And then they do the wonderful handoff where it goes from Troy and Jack to then Picard and Jack. That scene is outstanding. Like, both of them played the hell out of that scene.
Give that guy an award for that scene, seriously.
He really sold it. Really sold it. And I was completely on board with it. And I thought, you know what? this is actually incredibly plausible. The idea that there was just, in fact, did we joke about this last time that there's one nanite left in Jean-Luc that just happened to make its way?
I think we did, yeah.
Ed Spalier sold the hell out of it for me, and
Yeah.
so it worked after all that, because it was the thing that I have pointed out has been my biggest niggle, is what the hell is going on with Jack and why have I waited 8 weeks to find out? But the payoff to it made it worth the wait, I think.
I think so.
Yeah,
I know that I've had my criticisms of Picard season 3 are I would call small criticisms. So like, not that anyone is, but in case someone is watching this who's watched the show or worked on the show, I love the show. I love season 3. These are just, my critical brain is going. So there's, I do with my own work. It's just the way it is. So I'm not being mean. But I one of my criticisms is that I have loved all 10 hours of this. I think we could have told the story in probably 5 to 6 hours. Having said that, I love the fact we've been able to spend so much time with these characters and exploring some of these new characters, that even where scenes could have been maybe condensed and stuff like that, just being able to be immersed and feel like I'm really, really immersed back in the world of Star Trek is wonderful for me. Because I know we differ slightly, but that's cool because it's a diverse world. And I haven't fully connected with Discovery and Strange New Worlds and things like that. So for me, this really felt like a return to the Star Trek that connects with me the most. So even despite all of my criticisms, like, oh, you can maybe edit some of this, blah, 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 I'm like, you know what, this is 10 hours of wonderful time spent with these characters that I adore. And at this point, after watching 10, I'm like, I wouldn't want to change a thing now. I know
what you mean. Like, there's probably a version of the story that you could condense down into a movie, or like you say, kind of a shorter version of the season.
Yeah.
But the stuff that you get on top isn't stuff that I think you could cut out because it's nonsense. It's extra awesomeness on top of the really like perfect bit in the middle. Like, you're literally, you are padding out like perfection with awesomeness.
Yes, exactly.
That is my Picard season 3 sandwich. There is nothing bad here.
No, it's true. Yeah, there is no bad episode. There is no bad scenes. Nothing is, I would call nothing bad in this season whatsoever. But I can't say that about some of the others, and you can't say that about some of the classics as well. I mean, there are plenty of seasons that have, I think it's also much harder when you have 26 episodes that are an hour long each. You are going to have some stinkers in there. It's just bound to happen. That's
inevitable filler.
Yeah, that's not a dig on the show or the writing. It's just, when you're churning out that much, you're bound to get some bad stuff in there. So yeah, Jack is the voice of the Borg. He takes control. He gets away from the Titan and goes and confronts the Borg Queen because he thinks that, I guess, that he can stop her, I suppose. What did you think about that? Did that work for you? Did you want him to get to her a different way, or?
He got away too easily, I think, just a little bit too easily, but in exactly how I would expect someone like that to do that in a penultimate episode of a season or a show.
Yeah.
Fair enough. He got away really easily, and it's far too easy to scramble transponder codes at this point. Like, we've been doing this for like 75 years of Star Trek now. Somebody needs to figure out how to stop scrambling transponder codes, because it's the way to get away. But I thought it was really in keeping with his character that he would, because he was so headstrong and just diving in without thinking twice right from the first time we met him, that he would just run off and be like, you know what, I'll fix it, whatever, and run off to her with the full intention of whatever it was he thought he would be able to do, not thinking, I'm going to take on whatever is left of the Borg.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I suppose, if I were to change one thing, I might have said, you know what, just go ahead and let Vadic get away with him.
Yeah.
Maybe just let Vadic take him.
Yeah.
And then we get a scene between Borg Queen Vadic and Jack, or Borg Queen Vadic Jack and Picard.
Yeah.
In light of Vadic's quite shocking death, and then these last two episodes, do you feel that Vadic was missing? Did you wish that she was maybe somewhere in these final
I felt
bits?
like it needed, and this again, I feel like I'm criticizing, but I'm not, because I loved what we got. But I do think
It's positive criticism. It's positive.
there is something to be said for the fact that maybe not everyone watching will get even that the Queen was the floating head that Vadic was talking to.
Yeah,
because it's never explicitly stated.
True.
And so I feel like there was maybe a little bit more in there to connect the Vadic storyline and the Borg storyline.
Yeah.
You do get the dialogue between Picard and the Queen where she, he says to her, so you use the changelings to make your way into Starfleet.
Yeah.
But that's it. And I think you could have done a little bit more there.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
But still satisfied with what we got. Something else actually that I just thought of about the whole Jack getting away thing, or just Jack in general in this episode. Loved the technobabble that explained away how he was kind of giving out the signal, whereas Picard had been receiving the signal.
Yes.
One was the receiver, one was the transmitter.
Yes.
I thought they didn't go way too technical, but they also didn't just make it like a complete, like, easy contrivance. It was done in like proper classic Trek style.
Yes.
And I thought Vox was as much as I love what Terry did with the finale, I think Vox may be the best episode for at least for the dialogue of the season.
Yes. I think you're probably right on that. What was great about the last generation, the last episode, is I think probably the action and unspoken emotion.
Yeah.
I think. But in terms of like that classic, like you said, that classic Trek dialogue, that's the technobabble. I love that. I was like, oh, this is nice technobabble. This is like, it sounds smart, but it's really simple.
Yeah.
And it works within Star Trek. And that I love that. I love Geordi explaining all of that stuff. It's like a warm blanket. It was like
it is, blanket. And it escalated so quickly as well.
It really did.
From okay, we're going to open the door, to there's something Borg in him, to he's a transmitter, to oh my god, we've used the transporter to infect every single person in Starfleet with Borgness. And okay, if you're old, yes, we're safe. But if you're under 25, you are screwed.
Yes, I want to get to that in just a second, actually. But I want to talk first before we do that. Let's chat about Frontier Day. I think if I had two bits that were, I don't want to say disappointing, because that's I feel like that's a strong word, because I'm not disappointed with this season. But if there were two things I would have changed, if I could have, it would have been A, the Vadic thing that I mentioned, and B, Frontier Day was just a splash. It could have been bigger. And I want to caveat this by saying that from what I understand, time and resources were severely limited for this season. And I understand why we didn't get a lot of it. This criticism wouldn't be about the show runners, the creatives on the show. It would be like, Paramount, what the F were you thinking? Give them more money.
Yeah.
Give them more money. Seriously. Give them, like, Frontier Day could have been huge and should have been huge. Damn it, Paramount. What were you doing not giving them more money? Like, that's it. That's really my takeaway on that. But what were your thoughts on what we got from Frontier Day?
I liked what we got. I agree. I think that is probably the moment where you felt the most that they were doing the best that they could with the resources that they could afford. So, like, visual effects wise, I thought the Enterprise looked great. I thought the F though she was a little bit stunted in the neck, would have liked maybe a little bit more in the neck. I thought it was a nice ship design. And I thought the whole idea of them flying around space dock and the fireworks and everything was great. Shelby, what
Right.
a cameo I never saw coming.
No,
I mean,
I know, right?
it had to be. Once you knew it was the Borg, it was like, okay, Shelby.
Yes, yes,
She gets to captain the Enterprise, and then look what happens to her.
yes.
But I agree. I think if you
And
had
Riker still hates her.
he does. I love that. It's a shame they never got to actually be in a scene together. But they were both on the Ready Room this week on the sofa together, and it was fun seeing them do an interview together. But I think for me, yeah, I agree. If you had unlimited resources or you could do more with it, then I would have thrown in a little bit more. Even just if it had been an establishing shot, like close up from space dock of a window with just dignitaries, and Janeway was there with a champagne flute in her hand with somebody else. Didn't have to be hundreds of them. It could be a bunch of people we don't know who just happen to be admirals and commodores and just dignitaries, maybe President Chekhov. Just an establishing shot of that would have been awesome to have then gone, oh, okay, so they're all here, they're all watching.
Yes, I agree. I that's what was, when I think about the stuff that could have been done, that's exactly what I thought. I'm like, yeah, I would have loved a scene like that. I suppose the problem is if you do a scene like that, you then expect to see those characters have not necessarily a meaty role, but have a bigger role. And I guess the other problem is if let's say you bring in someone like Miles O'Brien or Bashir, and they're standing in the background, and this whole time we've been dealing with changelings, and no one got them involved or went to see if they were okay. That's always in the back of my head anyway with this series, because I'm thinking, but I get why, but they're on the run, so they can't really do that. But yeah, there's always that kind of double-handed problem with that stuff. But I think a cameo in the way that we see Tuvok again.
Yeah.
I think something at the end like that, where we see them one more time, make sure they're alive.
Yeah, exactly.
That something like that, I think would have been good.
I suppose there's baggage as well, even with Miles, because then you instantly go, oh, so where's Keiko? Where's Molly?
Yeah.
And Molly in Starfleet now. Is she somewhere on the Titan as well?
True. Molly would not be on the Titan. And that's because of what we left behind, the documentary that I keep mentioning.
Yes, yeah, I'm gonna have to watch it.
Yes. We'll talk about their Deep Space Nine pitch for pretend Series 8. That I just having watched this Picard season, I'm like, come on, guys, be nice, get Avery Brooks back, give that man an apology and a whole bunch of awards, and let's do some more Deep Space Nine. But yeah, so let's chat Borg and Borg Queen a bit. So I thought it was so fascinating that this new attempt at assimilation was to screw with kids' brains.
Yeah.
Screw with kids who have underdeveloped brains. Manipulate them through technology, through transport, but through technology, through something that they all do on a regular basis, no doubt. You go from A to B. Well, there you go. I can't help but think that this is a massive bit of social commentary. I really can't, because it's too perfectly on the nose. It's on the nose, but in the right way. Like, this is not. It wasn't badly handled. It was nicely handled. And there were times. I mean, maybe I'm reading more into this, but I've through the last year or so, there's moments where, like, Terry Metalis on Twitter will be like, social media is a stinking nightmare. It's like the worst place in the world. It's like, yeah, it is. It's pretty awful at times. And then if you're on TikTok and you see all this just nonsense and this brainwashing and just so much just ridiculousness. seeing that, I mean, that's always what the Borg have kind of represented anyway.
Yeah.
That sort of, we're going to brainwash you, one voice, no identity, no room for, yes or no's, just total yes, individuals. And you sort of get it with Jack's, that impassioned speech that Jack makes. Jack's like, this whole time I've always thought, oh my gosh, we should all just be in unison and, thinking the same thing and da 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 da. So like going from Jack saying that to learning what the Borg have done in assimilating the young and having the young then go and attack the older people, wipe out not assimilate them, wipe them out. And I'm like, is that not right now? More than ever?
Yeah. It is. I thought the same thing. You can't ignore it. It's right there. In that way that Trek classically has tackled stuff like that. It wasn't heavy-handed. It's like you say, it was done the right way.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what, I think that's kind of what was, it's something that I feel has been missing from Trek in general over the last 2 years, and this is my opinion only, is that I feel themes have been very heavy-handed. And to see the way they handle this particular theme, so it's a tightrope walk with it, because they easily could have just went really, really forceful with it, but it's restrained, and that they make the comments enough for you to understand it, and I think get it, without being like, oh, I don't know, these darn kids,
Yeah.
And it's also, the other thing that's I think is quite powerful about all of this is no one is judging like the younger population, right? It's all about, no, we need to fix this. We didn't finish off the Borg. We need to fix this for the young, for the last time. This is the last generation that has to deal with this kind of problem, and I guess that's the whole point of the title of the last episode. The last generation is
perfect title.
No more will our descendants have to deal with the Borg. They are, at least for now, truly and ultimately done.
Until someone decides that we need the Borg again.
I mean, I really hope not. I think we're done with that.
I know there's been lots of talk of, would we ever see them on Discovery? Where are they in that future? But clearly, there's not. If that is the same future, then they're not around, unless it's Agnes's Borg from season 2. But that's probably a point for a discussion around this season as a whole.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, I guess we could talk about that now. I mean, where does Agnes and these Borg and that weird wormhole, where does that fit in with season 3?
It's I don't want to say forgotten about, because it is obviously, I think it is acknowledged that they are, or Terry has said somewhere recently that Agnes is off manning her wormhole. It wasn't something that was important. Poor choice of words.
She's manning her wormhole, dude.
Yeah.
Do you, to quote Riker, do you even hear yourself?
I mean, how else could you say it?
It's true. She's guarding the wormhole.
She is guarding the wormhole. Yeah.
I love that.
But then would she, still having knowledge of who she was beforehand, not want to help? Maybe, I don't know.
This was one of the big problems I had with season 2 is Agnes and her Borg stuff makes zero sense. It just unfortunately doesn't make sense. The Borg connected across time and space. No, that doesn't work, because that ruins First Contact, because they were trying to create a dish to communicate with the Borg.
Yeah.
With the Enterprise E. So no, that doesn't work. I just, I think in certain ways, when they were still sort of fleshing out the Borg, I just see them as a weird rogue random collective of Borg that aren't really connected to the Borg.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
And I think that was really the whole point of Shaw's comment in the no win, I think it's no win scenario, where he's like, forget all that stuff with the Stargazer, the real Borg are still out there.
Yeah.
And
that comment, that's what's actually mentioned in the episode. Yeah.
And I think the fact that it's and this isn't just fan speculation, the fact that a character in the show says it, that sort of gives you that oh, okay, we don't need to worry about that stuff. That's clearly, we're actually trying to, whether we're trying to say forget about it, we're not going to go back to it, that was a bad idea, or just don't think about it for right now, we'll clean it up later. You can read it either way. Maybe they can make something out of those Borg, but I'm kind of like, just leave it. Just we don't need
to see it again. No.
We really don't. There are many big moments in Vox. When you really step back and think about all the big moments that happen.
Yeah.
It's huge. One of the things, should we talk about Shaw?
Yeah.
I watched it. I always watch the episodes before my wife, and then we watched them the next day on Friday morning. And we were watching the scene in which they were all trying to get away from the newly assimilated bridge staff and going down the turbo lift and going to the meeting up with the others. And the minute they started the firefight, my wife was like, I hope he doesn't die. And I was just like, oh no,
here it comes.
I knew what was coming. And then the moment happened and he got hit, and I was like, I can't believe they killed Shaw.
I thought it was coming from when the firefight started on the bridge. I wasn't sure he was going to make it off the bridge.
I thought the same. Yeah.
So the fact that he made it off the bridge, they did the whole turbo lift thing, then they got down, they reunited. It was just like waiting for it to happen.
Yes. And I suppose what's interesting is the way he dies is also the way he survived Wolf 359.
Yeah.
Because he was like, she told me to get on the thing, and I did, and why me? Da, 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 da. And he sort of, unintentionally, he's clearly not thinking about that in that moment. He's thinking of
what happened. Yeah.
And he tells them to all go and sacrifices himself. Interestingly enough, fan theory moment. If I had a little graphic, I'd put it up right now with some music, jingles, fan theory. But fan theory moment. So I watched, in preparation for episode 10, I watched the final episode of Voyager, the 2-parter, Endgame. In Endgame, is it Endgame? No. Sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. I also watched the finale of season 6 and premiere of season 7. In that 2-parter, 7 of 9 is connected to the Unimatrix, or Unimatrix 1. It's like where Borgs go to dream, basically.
Yeah.
And in this dreamscape, it's very Matrixy, which I think this episode came out around the same time as the Matrix came out in cinemas. So there's Unimatrix 1. Okay, we get it. We get it, Brendan Braga. You watch the Matrix. We get it. But anyway, in this episode, she's meeting up with other races who have been assimilated by the Borg, and I think this is one of the few times we actually see Borg that are like Klingon Borg and other rando, and it's kind of cool. It's like, don't think I've seen a Klingon Borg before. We always just see humanish Borgs.
Yeah.
That was cool. But in this episode, there's a lady who comes and chats with Seven, who says that she died at Wolf 359. And I'm like, this is the lady who saved Shaw. She doesn't say she was with Starfleet or anything like that, but if she had to have been with Starfleet, because she died at Wolf 359. We don't know what her role is or anything, but I'm like, this is the lady who saved Shaw. That's my fan theory. Putting it out there now. I haven't seen it on the internet yet, but that's trademark Luke Deckard.
Yeah. Interesting.
it fits so perfectly because I thought, and I should ask someone who might be in the know, be like, is this any kind of inspiration? Because it just felt like, this lady died at Wolf 359, and this is just, it's a really random person, and then this story with Shaw, I'm like, that connects so nicely.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm like, I think this is her. I think this is her. But Shaw's death, man. I mean, he's not coming back. He's actually dead.
He is dead. I mean, I said to you that I wasn't convinced after my first watch, but then I watched it at 3:30 in the morning. So I
Yes.
was probably not awake enough to realize he was dead.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to believe it. I did
No.
not want to believe it. But at the same time, I could see that it was the narrative thrust to get Seven to where she is in The Last Generation, which is like the best version of her I think I've ever seen.
Yes. Yeah, it's true. It's true. It was a shame because I loved that character. I wanted to spend more time with him. I wanted to see him grow. I wanted to see him and Seven grow together. Actually,
Yeah.
it's really what I wanted. And I think there is a way in which, narratively the story could have been written that allowed for that to happen and stuff. But there's a lot of new characters being introduced, and there's a lot of who is going to, if you're going to have a new crew and who's well, obviously there is one particular man who's definitely going to be, the heartthrob that they want on the bridge of the ship, Jack, so it's like, all right, okay,
Counselor.
so say again.
Special counselor to the captain, no less.
Yes, we will. The nepotism line made me laugh. I was like, I'm so glad someone said that because yes, absolutely. But I'm fine with it. I'm fine with that that bit of nepotism. So Shaw's dead. We zoom off, and where do we go? We go to the Fleet Museum. What did I say? What did I tell you? It had to pay off. Had to pay off.
Yeah. It did. Boy. I suppose the other thing with Shaw, actually, just while I'm thinking about it, it's clear once you get to the end of The Last Generation that we've got so much love and so much reverence for that legacy cast that no one was going to end up killed off. Yeah. So I guess, although I felt like they weren't safe right up until the very end, I guess you needed something to ramp that up a bit and actually have someone not be safe. So to see someone like Shaw, that I guess they must have known from early on that the audience were going to connect with him really well.
Yes.
That you had to have something like that. Otherwise, we'd have gotten to the end of it and all gone like nothing. Like all of this happened and no one died.
Yes. Yeah, it's true. It's true. It definitely raised the stakes. I agree. And we all know that I haven't connected with Raffi. And it was quite funny because my wife doesn't like her either. and she was like, why could they have killed her? And I was like, well, I was like, you could have, but and this is actually a really good point, I think. And killing her would not have had the same emotional resonance.
No, it wouldn't.
Because while she's been in all three seasons, she hasn't been a strong enough character, and killing her off at this point would have just felt like, I don't really, whatever.
It would have pissed off Seven if we were still, if we're still kind of acknowledging the story between the two of them. Yeah. But it wouldn't have given her that fire to do the speech on the bridge.
Yes.
At the beginning of Last Generation, that whole, I am not asking you to kill yourselves. I am asking you to fight for the people on Earth. We are the last people left in Starfleet. That's a Seven that has lost someone who has been somewhat inspirational to her, if in an antagonistic way. If Raffi had died, then she would have just been upset and kind of just gone along with whatever was then happening.
I think so. I agree. Yeah, Shaw's death was pivotal for that inspiration. I totally agree. It wouldn't have worked with anyone else, other than if they had like actually rescued Tuvok and Tuvok died. Someone like that would have to be. John says Star Trek overload in the chat. I don't know what you mean by that, John. Tell me what you mean.
By Star Trek. What does that mean?
Yes, I'm curious. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, What was I saying? Yeah, so something like that. But yeah, Shaw's dead.
Yeah, sorry, we're at Hangar 12. Sorry, I distracted you.
Oh yes, yeah, Hangar 12. Oh man.
Hangar 12.
So
Oh,
I
actually,
go
sorry.
on. No.
This is how we're going to end up at 3 hours. So now, before Vox came out, there was a video that was online very briefly that you saw that you linked me to.
I was going to talk about yep.
What do we think that someone from the show made that
Yeah.
in subterfuge?
I do.
Because that was a clip from that was footage that no one had seen.
Yeah.
That footage was not anywhere out there in the world.
Yeah.
And was branded.
Yeah. I think that was it's one of those moments where you do sort of wonder who is the leaker.
Yes, I often wonder this.
And I sometimes suspect that it's just the company leaking it. They're doing it because it's going to generate buzz. Marvel leaking the Ant-Man script and then be like, oh, we're going to find him and prosecute him. Sure you are. No, you're not. You did it on purpose.
One interesting point, though, actually. So obviously there were a ton of photos from Vox that came out as well as that strange video clip.
Yeah.
Now, all of the screeners that the press were sent beforehand were watermarked, but underneath, so in the letterbox. And every so often it would flash up on screen for like a frame.
Yes.
Whereas the finale, my name was across the middle. So it changed after Vox, before The Last Generation.
Okay, then here we go. Yeah. So
which to me feels like a reaction to the fact that photos came out from 9 before 10 was sent to the press. Because it was the same platform, came from the same people, came at the same time. The only thing that changed was rather than it being underneath, it was now bang in the middle. So if I took a screenshot, you would instantly know who it was. Unless I blacked out the middle of the screen.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So yeah, maybe that was it. Maybe, but it's also just too weird. It's too weird. I would have to go back and I'd have to go back and relook at the clip because I remember thinking, oh, the Enterprise E, because they opened the bay and it's Enterprise E. It's not the Enterprise D, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense. The E would still be around. Sure. But I do remember thinking the E looked a little funny.
Because it would have been stock footage. I would highly doubt they would have spent money to have made that shot.
I don't know. I agree. So it did look a little funny to me, and I was like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. And I was like, okay. I was also thinking, yeah, the Enterprise E, I guess, makes sense. The bridge is less bright than the D, and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, yeah, okay. I guess it's happy medium. The E is not my favorite, and by a long shot. I think the E and the F are two of the ugliest versions of the Enterprise we've ever got. Just don't like them. The D. Someone once described the D as like a Camaro, the Camaro version of the Enterprise, because it's all like slick and there's no like hard edges. And it's like, and it's funny because in The Last Generation, the way the D is zipping about, it's very much like a hot rod, doing its thing, which we'll get to. There are some phenomenal scenes with the D in episode 10. And yes, I do hear myself. But yeah, so yeah, we get our big reveal of the Enterprise D, which was lovely. Everything about it.
Yeah, and I mean, I love the E. I really did love the E. F. I have a couple of things I would have changed, but I thought it did look cool. But if in my ranking of next generation ships, it's E then D.
Okay, interesting.
I mean, I love it. I love the Enterprise D, obviously. But there was something about the E that I guess it was seeing First Contact at the cinema and seeing it on the big screen for the first time and just being like, what?
Maybe, yeah.
And I guess we didn't spend as much time with it, so I don't feel like I know every corner of the bridge like I would like to. And I always liked, not that I'm going to complain that they didn't do it in this, but I always liked the refit in Generations. I liked that it was busier. There's something about a bridge that has more people on it and a bit more going on in the background that I quite like.
Yes.
Which obviously you then had with the E. But my God, it was so cool to see the D back again.
It was. Because we had done a massive TNG binge, and we had over the last year or last 6 months watched all TNG, and it was really quite it was wonderful to go back and revisit the whole series
Yeah.
and spend all that time on the D, and I sort of came to appreciate the Enterprise D in a way that I hadn't in the past. Um, and then leading into this, I was like, oh wow, like the nostalgia for this ship hit me,
Massively.
yeah, more than I was expecting.
Mm.
And I think also just from being on, and I know people complain about it, and I know Dave, Blast is definitely not watching, but look, I do like the brightness. I don't care about the carpets, but I like the brightness, and we've had so many seasons on dark bridges. And I'm also fully aware that this isn't original to New Trek. I
Yeah.
Wrath of Khan. I love Wrath of Khan, but it has always bothered me that in
So
motion picture and Wrath of Khan, the bridge is very, very dark.
yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like guys, a few years ago, the bridge was in Technicolor and was neon and red and yellows and so much going on, and you've like ditched it for just all gray. And like I get it, you're trying to be military, yeah, and like
Dramatic theatrical lighting.
yeah, and also I know they did it with Generations, the lighting of the Enterprise D in Star Trek Generations,
Yeah. Oh god, yeah.
terrible.
It's so I think we talked about this last time, but I was rewatching it recently, and it's the scene for me in Picard's quarters when Troy goes to see him, and he tells her that his
Yeah.
brother and his nephew have passed away, and then he stands behind her, and right before that sun uh, blows up, and they go back to the bridge, he stood behind her, and like he might as well have been completely well, a bit like me right now because I need to turn the light on. He was gone. He's barely in the frame. He might as well not have been there. Weird.
I totally agree. I totally agree. But then I think about other shows like Voyager. Voyager is quite dark. Voyager is probably on par with the level of darkness that some of the ships are now.
Yeah, when they drop to red alert, they go really dark, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
And it is. I think it is dipped normally anyway, but especially from memory, when they're in kind of a battle scenario, then they drop really dark.
They do. And I mean, I was, like I said, I watched about 4 episodes the other day, and I was surprised, like, oh yeah, because like there were Chakotay and Seven were dating, and they met up in his quarters for a date, and I mean his quarters were almost as black as Picard's quarters in Generations. There was dramatic lighting going on, and it was very much like that. And I was like, okay, yeah, let's be real. Like the dark sets have kind of always been. It's just that TNG and TOS were very, very bright.
I have loved watching people complain that if the D was going to come back,
Mhm.
all along for the last like 8 weeks before this, people on Twitter just being like, they're gonna do it. It's gonna be the D. It's gonna be really dark. It's gonna be stupid. And then they walk in, and it's like,
Right.
I could feel the collective groan of the internet. Like, oh, okay. So you had lights then.
Yeah, exactly.
How do we complain now?
Exactly. What do we do now? We got our damn carpets. We got our damn lights. We can't complain. We can't at Dave Blast and be like, well, the carpets. I got to be honest. Carpets on the starships always seemed ridiculous to me.
Yeah.
I never liked it. I kind of assumed that the carpets were there for like sound purposes. I didn't think it actually had anything to do with I thought they needed to muffle people's shoes.
Yeah, probably.
And that's the only reason why I thought they had it. Because otherwise I'm like, why would they waste all that money? Or I guess it's not money, but why would they waste all the manpower laying carpets
yeah
on this ship?
Yeah, who looks after those? Is there a cleaning crew that hoovers that? Does the bridge get cleaned once a day?
Right, exactly. I assume there's droids.
Self-cleaning carpet?
Yeah, I mean we got Roombas, we just don't see them. So that's how those carpets are. Yeah, self-cleaning maybe. Yeah, don't know. But man, taking the Enterprise out of space dock. And that music, I've been listening to that track. I need to remember the title of it. It's Make It So. The track Make It So on the Picard 3. It's that last 3 minutes of that track. It's a 6-minute track, but
Yeah.
that build up. The Enterprise D has never looked so good, I don't think.
No, I know. And when you think that that's the one that was never in, we never saw it in CGI. That was the last ship that was fully done as a model. I wondered how it would look. And I do feel, I think, again, it's something that you and I talked about, but there has been a little bit more of a shiny quality to some of the ships in visual effects. Whoop, as if by magic. This season.
How did that happen?
That was Martin.
Okay. I was like, did you have like an alarm that like turns your lights on?
So I did wonder whether the Enterprise D would have that same kind of smooth. I mean, you can see it in the background on the stream. You know, the Titan is very smooth, and it's a bit kind of one note, but it looks great. Whereas, wow, the D just looked incredible. It had all of the texture that the model had back in the 90s.
Yeah, and not just the texture, but the way that the shadows were hitting the texture.
Yeah.
They spent
I guess they saved up money to render the ship the best of everything we saw.
I think they must have done, because it really, some of those shots, oh my God, there were moments I thought, am I actually looking at a model? Because this looks so good that I'm not saying the CGI can't replicate it. It can, but the way that they rendered the D, my gosh, it was just phenomenal. I can't praise that enough. It was and that I love that. Also, do you think Patrick Stewart's voice changed when he was on the Enterprise?
I think you could feel that he was more excited.
Yes.
I think maybe I suppose maybe for him, because they shot it back to back with 2 and 3, it was a huge. They were shooting for what, 12, 18 months, I think, or something ridiculous, between pandemic and everything else that happened.
Yeah.
That for him, that was probably the second wind. He's like, right, we're nearly. I think that whole Geordie, so LeVar Burton saying, by the way, we may have gone back to the old ship, kind of slip up that he made. He said they shot on it for 3 days. So it may have been right towards the end of the shoot, 3 days on that bridge, being back with all of them together on that old set. I can imagine that just pushed him right on to the end of the shoot.
There was definitely something, and kind of getting into Last Generation now, there was definitely something about his demeanor on the Enterprise D and the tone of his voice. I've always kind of felt that Patrick Stewart never fully regained his Jean-Luc Picard voice and demeanor. Totally. It was mostly there. Really not so much in but in seasons 1 and 2. Season 3, it was like, okay, there's a bit more Picardness going on. Maybe this was coming through in direction. I'm not sure. But he was less wistful and all that sort of stuff, which was good. But there was definitely in my opinion, there was a sense of assuredness.
Yeah.
And I am the mother flipping captain going on in that moment, where he was just back to no nonsense Picard, engaged, take your stations. Here we go. We're doing it. Here we go. There was just something about it. I thought, okay, I think they've really pushed channeling Next Generation as much as they can. I think they really pushed it in all the right ways. I mean, it was perfect. Absolutely perfect.
It's probably really sad. I really hope they filmed all of them seeing it for the first time. I hope someone has that, and I want to see it. So again, on the latest episode of the Ready Room, they did a little featurette of going around it with the original designers, and so it was Will Wheaton seeing it for the first time, and he just bawls.
Of course he does.
And then he's like, "This is my chair." He's like, this is literally like, this is my chair. It's like no time has passed, and I just want to
Yeah.
see how everyone else reacted to it.
I would love to see that as well. That would be quite a cool, because it's almost thinking, did you watch the Friends reunion you kind of got a little bit of that when they went back to their old sets.
Yeah,
I would absolutely, I'm sure someone
that
filmed it.
has
That
to
would
exist
be
somewhere.
a
Yeah,
travesty if they didn't. My goodness, travesty. um yeah, I'm hoping that, I'm assuming we're going to get a Blu-ray 4K release. I will be buying that. This will be the only season of Picard that I am willing to own on DVD, Blu-ray, whatever. But I mean, this is the thing. I say that to make a point. I'm like, you've done something so right that someone who hasn't watched Star Trek, but who loves Star Trek, but hasn't watched it in years, is back, and not just back, but like ready for more. Like,
yeah,
give me more. I've bought the vinyls. I'm listening to the soundtrack nonstop. I'm watching these episodes 2 to 3 times every, once, every time they've been released. Like, I am in for what they've done with this.
do you know
I
what?
want
I
more.
don't know how many times I've seen. So I know I've seen The Last Generation 3 times,
Yeah.
but other episodes this season, I don't know, 6 times maybe already. Yeah,
Wow.
I've
Yeah.
seen it
Yeah.
because it's so rewatchable as
It
well.
is. It is. It feels like TNG. It feels
Yeah,
like TOS. It feels like Deep Space Nine, where you can go back and just enjoy watching an episode. Obviously this is slightly different because it is serialized, and you probably almost need to rewatch it in order every time. Maybe, I'm not sure, but or watch them in double features. I'm going to watch 1 and 2. I'm going to watch 3 and 4, 5. Something like that. But yeah, it is. I've not wanted to. Not only have I not wanted to, have this desire to watch Trek on a weekly basis, but the desire to rewatch it. I like I said, I watch it one day, I watch it the next day, and then in prep for reviews, I probably either watch an episode or rewatch the whole episode if I can.
yeah,
Um, and every time, normally if you rewatch something, you sort of start to get, the disenchantment begins to dwindle. But I'm like, no, these rewatches are just like the TNG. Like, I'm not bored. I'm not losing interest. What has been produced is really quality stuff. So before we dive deeper into the Last Generation, so some people have sort of complained, and I sort of want to talk a little bit about complainers. Um, Obviously, I can be a complainer. I hold my hand up to that, and I've been very critical of Trek in the past, and I will be critical of Trek in the future. But I love this. I'm trying to find things that I bookmarked that I don't want to uh, 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 say who says them. But yes, I bookmarked complaints just for fun, just so we can, yeah. Like, one person said that Picard was like an Easter egg, hollow in the middle. It's all sweet on the outside, hollow in the middle. What's your response to that?
no,
I agree. I totally agree. I'm like, what?
I think there is. So I was talking about this with someone the other day at work, and I was trying to explain it. Someone who is not even really a Star Trek fan at all, doesn't even watch that much TV. But I was trying to sort of say, if you look at the last 3 Star Wars movies, and I don't want to get into the whole let's compare Star Wars and Star Trek, but I'm talking about using legacy characters for future storytelling.
Yeah.
If you look at what they did with those last 3 Star Wars movies, that to me was fan service. Bringing people in, killing them off one by one. Okay, granted, one of them died in real life, but it just used them. It used elements of why we loved that franchise to try and bring us back and make money and allow them to try and hook a new audience that they could do something with. Whereas I think when you look at this is not fan service. This is not, yes, there are Easter eggs, but can you really call it that when it is a continuation of the previous 20 odd years of storytelling from season 1 through season 7 and the movies?
Yeah.
Because I remember from when the first episode of this season came out, people saying like, "Oh my god, Easter egg! The cargo hold on the Helios has stuff that's in the same shape that it was in the cargo hold on the Enterprise D." It's like, well, it's Starfleet. It's the same generation.
Yeah. It's a box.
Yeah, so it's a box. So I just feel like, can you really call it fan service, and can you really call them Easter eggs when it is fully existing in that same period? With it would be like saying, so like if Miles was in it and Keiko turned up, that's saying that Keiko was an Easter egg.
Yes.
Well, she's not. She's his wife.
Yeah.
We would question it if she wasn't there.
Yes.
So, had Alexander turned up, that wouldn't be an Easter egg. That would just be Worf having a scene with his son.
Yes.
Ro was not an Easter egg. She is a character that exists.
Yeah.
And that is my argument to people that say this has been fan service.
Yes.
I guess you could argue maybe they didn't need to do it, but they felt they had a story to tell. And is that not why film and TV exists anyway? Because someone has a story to tell.
Yes.
So that is my response, is you can't call it that when it is legitimately telling a story in that period of time.
I agree. I totally agree. And I think what you could look at, where I think this is an example of an Easter egg just being pointless, is, let's say, The Force Awakens, when Finn lifts up the little ball that Luke shot at when he's in the Falcon. Yes. That is not only an Easter egg, but it's holding an Easter egg up to the viewer. Hey guys, remember Star Wars? That is a pointless Easter egg. But when, like you're saying, when we're in Beverly's ship or someone's house, and if you were to come over to my office, you will see relics from my past. I have boxes of my childhood action figures, things that I played with, when I was 10, 12, or 7, 8 and younger. I mean, there's there's really old stuff with me that has traveled from the States to the UK with me, where I am now. So it's like, well, why wouldn't some of these people have things that when they move? Yeah. Why not? I'm loving the cat.
He's having a little explore back
there.
He
is. Oh,
so like the orchid that she had on her desk.
Yeah.
What did she used to do in The Next Generation?
Exactly.
The amount of times we saw her with her little scissors cutting her orchids.
Exactly. And if that's her thing, that's her thing. So of course she would still be doing it. Yeah. So I do have to take some issue when people, there was so much, not so much, because there was actually way more praise for Picard than I've seen for any other Star Trek in a very long time. Maybe that's just my rose-tinted glasses. I don't know. But there were still complaints out there, and these complaints of, it's nothing but nostalgia bait. Nothing is happening. Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, there actually is quite a lot happening, and this is kind of leads me back to that point where I said, sure, you could edit some of this stuff down to make it feel faster. But there is a lot of stuff happening in these episodes. There's a lot of really great character moments happening. There's a lot of character growth. Jack's character growth from the beginning to the end is a really good arc. Seven's arc, Shaw's arc, they're great. They are not they're not how they were at the beginning. And that, to me, it's like, no, there has been growth. Because one person I saw complain that Jack went to the Borg Queen because the script told him to, and it's like, well, I mean, you could make that point, but also Luke didn't have to go to Cloud City. He was told not to go to Cloud City, but he still went. Sometimes we just do dumb things.
Yeah. They set that precedent early on. He was a Han Solo-esque type character. That's how Jack was referred to, basically. At the beginning, he was somewhat of a space scoundrel who was going from port to port doing what he did. So making rash decisions, and clearly hot-tempered, because the first thing we saw, well, actually, we didn't see him. We heard his voice when Beverly shut him out of the bridge and he was banging on the door screaming at her to let him in.
Yes.
When they were going to go into that firefight. So, the precedent is there. So it baffles me. Yeah. But I do feel like people look for issues.
I think so. I think so. I think
Particularly with IP like this that is so legendary and has such a history,
yeah.
because people feel like you shouldn't touch it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think I mean if I were to go back and rewatch it and be ultra critical, I mean you could. Fireworks in
Mm,
space, come on. I don't give a shit. It was fun. It was
exactly.
fun.
Exactly.
Who
Yeah.
cares? Who cares? They invented space fireworks. I'm fine with they invented space fireworks. I don't know how they work, but because then the thing that baffles me is people be like, "But there's fireworks in outer space," and then they'll be like, "Yeah, but there's also aliens and warp drive and wormholes and time travel."
Yep.
Fucking babies, stop it.
And I'm sure, I could be wrong, but I'm sure there's fireworks in space when Voyager gets home in the finale.
Voyager is flying through San Francisco.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
on Earth. It's on Earth.
It's
So
not in space, is it? As they're approaching Earth.
yeah, no. So there is that. But yeah, so but still, it's like who cares? You wouldn't have laser beams either, and you wouldn't have I don't know for the way the fires and the explosions are, and it's just come on, guys, come on. Yeah, no, some of these criticisms they cracked me up. They really did. 'Cause I do think it's a bit of like negative Nellies just or negative Neds, just really just attacking it because they just want to be bitter, maybe. I don't know, and to me it's different. I know I'm rambling. To me it's slightly different from complaining about these people complaining about like Easter eggs and like her Beverly's orchid. Of course, she's gotta have her orchid. Makes sense. Versus like things like the maybe some of the Marvel-esque humor
Yeah.
in like the current shows that we'll definitely I want to talk a little bit about that much later, but like some of that's like that to me it's like more acceptable criticism versus you're mad because Jean-Luc Picard's comm badge caught his attention.
Yeah.
Who cares? It was fun. That was a fun way to kick off this adventure. Picard's classic comm badge going off because Beverly sent the signal. That's the only, fine. It's fun. Come on.
Let's not forget Kirk and his like jet boots flying up the side of a cliff.
Oh, Spock.
Spock.
Yes.
The boots.
They
Yeah.
were stupid.
While they were, yeah.
They were stupid. Although at some point, I would love to do a retrospective on Star Trek 5 because I think it's actually kind of good. To riff on those headlines that like those headlines are like oh I don't know what's a really bad film I don't know X is actually kind of dumb or actually kind of good but yeah there are some interesting elements in 5 that I think get overlooked by Shatner not being a very good director.
Yeah.
But yeah, Biffer the Hobbit in the chat says, "I hate watched Picard season 3." Why hate watch it, bud? It was. I loved watched it. It was wonderful.
And
Only
what was it about it that you hated when you watched it, or was there anything when you watched it that actually you suddenly thought, "Oh no, actually, I kind of like this"?
that's a good question. Tell us what you didn't like, and tell us what you liked, and we will discuss those points.
There is nothing funnier when someone tells me they've tried to hate watch something and then they're like, I actually loved it.
Yes, it's true that has happened. That has happened to me in the past. There were things I'm like, I don't like this show. Screw this show. Oh shit, what's gonna happen next? But Biffer, you also say only even Star Trek movies. I disagree now. I used to be in that camp, Biffer. I used to be, 1 isn't very good, 2 is great, 3 isn't very good, 4 is great. But I've changed over the years. I've evolved. I think
like
the motion I like the Borg. The motion picture I think is one of the best Star Trek movies.
Wow.
I love it. It's not loud. It's not in your face. It's a slow burn. It's a character driven story. It's about it pays off further in Star Trek 2, particularly with Kirk. But Kirk wanting to be on that bridge, wanting to be the captain again, being frustrated that Will Decker is going to be the captain and pushing him out of the way so he can captain and all that stuff. Like yeah, yeah. There was just something about that, the way they interact with Spock for the first time. Will you please sit down? It's yeah, it's I loved it. I loved it. There's something really wonderful about that story. And it's very Star Trek. There's not a big loud fight villain. It's
Yeah.
just a cloud that we need to deal with. And it's great. I absolutely loved it. Biff from the Hobbit says, hang on. He says, I watched Picard season 3. Okay, he's being cheeky. I watched Picard season 3 and loved it. No issues. But I will wait. But I will never praise Secret Hideout. I want
Okay.
to leave Star Trek alone. Okay, right. So wait. So are you
You're talking
saying
anti-Kurtzman?
Okay, so are you saying you actually enjoyed season 3, but Secret Hideout is the problem? Is that because if that's what you're saying, there is I sort of concede that point to some degree.
I find this really interesting. I don't understand the hate for Kurtzman. I don't understand. I don't understand why he is such a hate figure in contemporary Star Trek fandom. I can understand, people having legitimate issues with things like Discovery, which can be a bit more heavy-handed with some of its political storytelling. I do not agree with anyone, and I will fight anyone to the death that wants to talk to me about some of its representation on non-binary characters and trans characters, because I think a lot of that exists in stuff like Deep Space Nine anyway. Look at Dax. Look at the entire Trill
it's been there since the beginning
as a species. But I have had people argue with me in the face that is not what the Trill was about, and that Discovery got it wrong. Anyway, but I don't understand why Kurtzman himself is such a hate figure. Because he's really just the Kevin Feige.
Yes. But I think it's similar when I criticize Marvel, I criticize Kevin Feige because he is in charge.
Yeah.
And he's not a creative. He's a producer. He's not the creative guy. He thinks he's creative, but he's not creative. Which happens with a lot of producers. And with Kurtzman, I think some of the problem with Kurtzman is, for me, personally, is when I look at his track record, and I'm like, dude, nothing you have done has been good. Film wise, I've not seen a film that you have written or produced that has been good. Amazing Spider-Man 2, awful. It's awful. Magic Blood. What else do you do? Are you looking up as well?
Yeah. Am I IMDb?
Okay. I need to do the same thing because I need to remember when I'm actually all this stuff as well.
Obviously, Star Trek, the J.J. Abrams era movies.
Yes.
Where are we on? Let's have a look at writing credits, shall we? So, Hercules TV series.
Damn it.
16 episodes of Hercules. Xena, Warrior Princess.
IMDb is really annoying. It the way they I click the thing that I think that I want, and it's actually taking things away. And it's like, that's not what I want. Where's the writing credits?
When I think of him, I think of stuff like Alias, which is one of my favorite shows of all time. I think of Fringe, which is one of my favorite shows of all time. I think of Man Who Fell to Earth on Paramount Plus, which is actually an interesting continuation of that story. Sleepy Hollow TV series as well is actually another one that had a lot of production issues, but I think is quite a well-written show. But yes, you are right. There is the Amazing Spider-Man 2s in there.
So let's go through. So Clarice. Bad. That wasn't good. That was a cheap attempt at, a Hannibal spinoff without Hannibal. Just let Brian Fuller do Hannibal season 4. That's what should have happened. The Mummy is shockingly bad. Amazing Spider-Man 2, very bad. Star Trek Into Darkness is so bad. Cowboys and Aliens, awful. Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, terrible. Transformers, bad. Mission Impossible 3 is so. Legend of Zorro is okay. I never watched Alias, so I can't complain. And
one of the best shows of all time.
That's what I've been told that it's good, but I haven't watched it. Hercules, Xena Warrior Princess, whatever, schlocky fun. You're not watching those shows for quality. You're watching those for bodies. So the thing is, I've looked at some of this stuff. I'm like, I'm not really wowed by what you've done. And I get the sense of, and this is pure speculation. I have no inside knowledge, but there's there's the sense of like, okay, well, he's in with a certain particular crowd, and that gets him possibly gets him positions in the way that that Jack was like, well, the nepotism probably helped. You know,
Yeah.
getting his role on the Titan. We'll talk about that in a bit.
Ooh, you nearly said it.
I did. So I think that's some of the problem. Now, I do agree with you when you're saying that things like when people are complaining about representation stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, blah, 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 shouldn't be there. Or wasn't there in the past. That I completely disagree with, because it clearly was there. I mean, there was the episode of TNG with the non-binary planet where the one character, you know, wanted to actually identify as something, and that was actually a really interesting commentary on that whole ideology and what happens when you take it too far.
Yeah.
And particularly in today's sort of climate, that's a very interesting episode to go back and rewatch.
It is, yeah.
The Jadzia Dax stuff, you know, the symbiote. You know, I whether the symbiote is can be associated with trans stuff or just with you know, being gay or lesbian. I don't know, but it clearly resonates with people on some way. And there was blatantly, you know, some social commentary going on with that, particularly that episode where Dax begins to fall in love with the other Trill doctor, who I can't remember her name. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
That, yeah.
I remember.
So that, you know, there's tons and tons and tons of represent the and I think this is where, if we go back to the point about the Borg assimilating only the young and using that as sort of a social commentary about today's standards. Everyone in one voice. You can't have a voice. You need to just be doing this. If everyone could just think my way, we would all be better. The way that commentary was handled in Picard 3 was wonderful.
Yeah.
The way some of the commentary is handled in the new stuff is a bit heavy-handed. And that's not to say old Trek wasn't heavy-handed at times, because it definitely was. But I think that could be part of the problem, mixed with sometimes actors just say things in interviews and you're just like, just stop, because
stop talking.
kind of, because honestly, if sometimes the less you say, the better.
Yeah.
Because people will just watch the show, and if you get people's backs up through interviews before the show even comes out, that's not going to help the discourse. What's going to help it is if you actually get people watching the show and discussing the episodes. That creates the dialogue that you actually want. Not, oh, so and so says she's the first lady dwarf in Lord of the Rings. You know, stop it. You know, that's not helping anybody. That's just, you know, you're not. So why'd you say that? You know, so you have to sort of, it's a very but I agree that some people on social media, they latch onto this stuff and they just dig in. They just dig in with it, and it becomes quite difficult to navigate, because you sort of just don't want to. You definitely don't want to engage with it, especially on social media. And yeah, so I don't know what else is Biff saying here.
My DMs are always interesting when I'm talking about Discovery, or if like it's just come out on DVD, and I'll often get sent a copy of it, and you know, I'll do the like, thanks very much Paramount for sending me Discovery.
Yeah,
my DMs are a fun place to be on days like that.
What are people like? What are they saying?
Oh, I get all. I just like the word woke will appear everywhere, and I will get a tirade of derogatory terms to describe me that I don't really wish to engage with, and like, oh, you've never watched Star Trek, you don't understand Star Trek, you don't know what Star Trek is, and I'm like, I do. I literally grew up on it.
Yeah. I don't. It's the Borg. It's funny because this Borg sort of mentality works both ways. It works with like the right side of the aisle and the left side of the aisle. And they're both kind of their own versions of Borg, fighting for their one singular voice. And it's like, guys, let's have a dialogue here. Let's
exactly
dialogue. Because that's, and again, I think maybe that's another thing that I think Picard handled and Classic Trek handled just a little bit better, newer stuff is there was more dialogue.
Yeah.
And there was less sort of, here's the moral of the story, we're going to tell it to you. It's more, here's a dilemma, here's two perspectives.
Yeah.
Here's Starfleet in the middle of those perspectives. And I think that's why those series stick with me the most, because I think about the Pale Moonlight with Benjamin Sisko and the making the fake news to fool the Romulans and going that far and feeling, what does he do? He's really crossing the line. That's the stuff that I love. I don't need the nice shiny message. And I think Nicholas Meyer said it really well. He's like, I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here to, give you something to think about. And I think that's something that I think series 3 did really well. The other series, I think, struggle with it just a little bit. Oh, here we go. Why do people on these podcasts say the most boring shit ever thought of? I don't know, bro. I don't know. It's like you don't put effort into your thoughts. Oh, I don't put any effort into my thoughts.
Really?
Love it. Love it.
That's when I get... So, like, people can say what they want. They can call me whatever they want. If I don't know you and you're just some random in my DM, then I really couldn't give a flying, like, photon torpedo what you think. You call me whatever you want. But what I find so funny is when you try and engage, because if someone doesn't like it, I want to have a conversation with you about why you don't like it. Yeah. Like, I'm dying to just like for you and I to have a good conversation about Strange New Worlds and just get into what you've not connected with about that show so far.
Yeah.
But so often when someone is like, oh, it's crap, I'll say, tell me about it. Because, tell me what it is you didn't like about it. And I had this last week where someone replied to my review on Vox and said, basically, this show is shit. And I said, tell me what it is that you don't engage with on this program. They either then don't reply, or they just tell me the same thing again and say it's shit, or tell me that I'm wrong because I like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
My opinion's my opinion. Your opinion is your opinion. Let's have a dialogue about it.
Yes.
Like exactly. You said, just have a dialogue with me about it. But so often than not, particularly I'm blessed because I'm a Star Trek fan. I'm a DC Comics fan. My TV shows are woke and my movies are crap. I can't win anywhere. But let's talk about it. Let's not just you tell me that I'm wrong.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. I totally agree. The way that you need to sort of engage with that is very different. The way social media engages is just ridiculous. I remember when I had Stephanie on, we sort of talked, the actress who plays Tavine, Stephanie Chakowski. For those watching and listening to my effortless thoughts. We sort of talked about that a little bit towards the end of our interview, where it was just sort of like, how do you do this? And the answer, I think, is 100% off social media. You can't have these conversations on social media. You just can't. It's difficult. But I would, we can definitely do a Strange New Worlds chat at some point. I think that would be fun. Maybe when that would be fun. Because I don't loathe it
when it comes on.
We should. Biffer, who I will continue to read his comments because Biffer's he's a regular listener, and I like you, Biffer. He says New Trek is too dark. I can't see anything going on. New Trek stories are dumb and always disrespect the lore. New Trek are written for written to, I think you mean to destroy the brand. I wouldn't go as far as say to destroy the brand. We discussed the darkness earlier on. Voyager is very dark. It's pretty on brand towards the end. TNG, TOS, very bright. Voyager, Deep Space Nine, Voyager in particular is actually quite dark. Go back and check Voyager out. It's probably as dark as what we're getting right now.
And I'm interested by is the idea of how do you feel like it's destroying the brand, Biffer? And that's not because I'm saying it's not. I'm interested in what you feel like it's doing to destroy the brand. Because I can see that, because when you watch Discovery is not episodically going to strange new worlds and boldly going and meeting new people. It's somewhat depressing in a future where Starfleet has been nearly destroyed and they're picking up the pieces.
Yes.
But I think if you watch season 4, which I'm not saying if you don't like it, go out and watch it and it's going to change your mind. But if you watch the progression of the storyline now they're in the future, they have started to put the pieces back together, and they are now doing the more optimistic storytelling. So I find it interesting. I find it very intriguing, but I like it when I can talk to someone about it rather than them talk at me about it.
Yes, my assumption is, and differ, put your comments in the chat, please. My assumption is that he might be referring to things like Spock being what's her face's Burnham's sister.
Yeah, which we talked about this, didn't we? That should not have happened. They should have just allowed it to be its own thing.
I think bringing maybe potentially bringing Kirk into season 2 is weird. I sort of made a joke. I didn't do it on Twitter, but I made a joke that it's like I said, Captain Kirk. No, it's Dan from accounting, because he just doesn't look like Kirk. Not that he needs to look like William Shatner, but because like Chris Pine is a really good Kirk.
Yeah,
I can happily say Chris Pine was a good Kirk. I was very nervous about them recasting that crew, and I think for those films they at least cast well. I think. But yeah, so I think that might be things like that. But anyway, give us more detail, Biffer. Give us more detail. We should chat more about episode 3 or episode 10 rather.
We should, yes. Okay, Last Generation.
Oh my god, the opening. When I heard, I knew it. I'm very very good with voices. And that opening with the President Anton Chekhov, I was like, that's Walter Koenig. That is fucking Walter Koenig. They brought Walter Koenig back. I loved it. And him quoting Chekhov, his dad. The fact that Chekhov's son goes on to be the president of the Federation. I'm like,
love that.
That was good. That was a good, really, really good reference.
Nod to Anton Yelchin as well, which is just lovely. Even today, third watch, I'm still like, is that? I can't tell. He's not Russian.
Who, as in his son?
Yeah, I'm like, I can't tell that's Walter. I can't, if he's not doing a fake Russian accent, I'm just not getting it.
Yeah, I think it's because I've listened to enough interviews of Walter outside of Star Trek that I'm like, I recognize that voice. And then when he put on the accent, I was like, boom, that is Walter. And I thought that it really was a wonderful, like, that's not, I guess that could sort of be an Easter egg.
Yeah.
That's a reference. That's a nod. That's a thing. But it was a really nice nod and connection to TOS. I mean, we've had Kirk's body, but to actually have, a descendant, the first descendant of a TOS person since, I don't really know. I can't think.
There hasn't
really been one.
Apart from there's none that have gone on past their era.
Yeah, no. So I guess this is the first sort of TOS connection since Scotty's appearance in I think season 6 of that. Well, I guess you had Sulu appeared in Voyager.
Of course he did. Yeah.
But in terms of a descendant, we haven't really got anything.
Yeah, because that was there must. I mean, Demora Sulu must be around somewhere from the Enterprise C, not C, B.
B. Yes. Would she be around? Would she be? Not sure.
It might be Next Generation on from her even. Yeah, but it's nice to think that there are descendants of these people out there following in the footsteps of, in some respects, of what their ancestors were doing.
Yeah, I think so. We've chatted loads about how good the Enterprise D looked, so we'll skip that. But those opening shots, the kind of approaching Jupiter, the way they
slightly recreating the opening credits of TNG.
Yes. Damn good. Damn good. Okay, so they get to the Borg ship. Their chat. They decide. It becomes clear that they need to go on the Borg ship and go confront whatever is in there, whatever they need to do to save Jack. We get our first sort of reveal of the plan. We see the Borg Queen for the first time.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Loved it. Do you know what? It reminded me of the giant arachnoid from the Christmas Doctor Who from
Yes,
season
shit, it did.
2, season
It did.
3.
It did.
Um, Loved it. Thought it was awesome. I did. I had a few issues with the design of the Queen in season 2. The makeup is amazing, but she doesn't have that sort of. This is going to sound terrible, but I can't think of a better way to say it. She's sort of wet
Yeah.
and shiny in First Contact,
Yes, she
and
is.
in Voyager, which she wasn't in season 2, and sort of is a bit more like that here, but it's somewhere between the season 2 Borg Queen and the original Borg Queen. But the whole melted into the wall thing, I loved. Like,
Yeah.
give me all the horror around that, because it should be.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that was wonderful. The way the melted face was going, the sort of, it was very horrific. I dug that quite a bit. I was very much on board with that. And I agree with the sort of the wetness. It was interesting because the Voyager Borg Queen didn't have that. But when they brought Alice Krieg back for the Borg Queen, they went full on with it. And yeah, and she definitely got it. Yeah, so I quite like that.
I love the fact that she repeated her "Witness your future's end."
Witness, yes, yeah, that was a good nod. That was a good nod. I suppose then that's when we kind of talk about this as well. We kind of get that big sort of fun, the big conclusion of, yes, she was working with the changelings to This is where I do think I would have liked Vadic to have still been alive, because I think while it's clear, yes, they are working together, fine, sure. I would have liked to, I think, hear Vadic's side of the story. You know, how did they connect? What brought them together? How did that happen? Because, you know, obviously the Borg Queen says, you know, you left us at the end of space. But it was actually Janeway. And this is the other thing. I think it would have been sort of nice to have referenced Janeway in that moment, you know, because Janeway also has a big connection to the Borg, big connection to the Queen as well. And I think maybe for some individuals watching who aren't steeped in the lore, they might not fully grasp where this Queen has come from and why she is the way she is and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that if there was one criticism on that, it would definitely be that. But I think overall, bringing the voice of Alice Krieg back and having this mutilated Borg Queen was the stuff of nightmares. It was truly horrific stuff, and I loved it.
Yeah,
absolutely loved it.
Absolutely. And I thought, again, I know we've talked about this already tonight, but given the constraints on budget and what they were able to do, I thought they did a good job of recreating the amount of Borg cube that we saw.
Yes.
It was clear that they were shooting around what they were able to do, but they did it really well. The angles that they chose, the kind of sections of it that you actually saw on screen, I thought all looked great. And I couldn't fault that. I would have loved to have seen more, but I loved what we got.
Yeah, absolutely. Biffer says, too painful.
I saw it. I just opened YouTube on my phone and I saw the low ratings, low interest. No one cares.
Yeah. He's just too painful paying attention to Discovery these days. Gruesome on-screen deaths and F-bombs everywhere. The question of cursing, the question of cursing in Star Trek is, that's tricky.
How many F-bombs have we had? We had the Admiral in the first season of Picard who F-bombed at him.
We've had that. Tilly said, "Oh, it's so effing cool."
Yeah,
I remember that from a bit somewhere. It's happened a few times, and it's cursing in Star Trek is a mixed bag for me. I sort of don't like it, but there are times where they curse and I don't mind it. I'm not sure how I totally feel about it. I mean, I know they did, you know, some of the TOS crew cursed in the original films,
and Data as well. He says, "Oh shit!" That's his famous moment in Generations when they're about
Yeah,
to crash
yeah,
the ship. But you're right; it's not something that we're used to, or that
no.
should or does happen frequently.
Yeah, yeah. So it's I sort of understand dialing back from the strong curse words like the
Mm.
F-bomb
Yeah,
in it. Fine. I'm okay with, and I'm okay with that sort of criticism. Some of the other cursing, like, it's fine. I think it depends on the person, depends on situations. Yeah. But I know there are some strong thoughts on the cursing out there, some seriously strong thoughts. But I will say, not on cursing, but back to the Borg Queen.
yep,
I do think that the way that they concluded the Borg story is it's much better than what we got in Voyager. Um, Voyager sort of they have this grand idea. They're going to throw in this virus, decapacitate the Borg, and they're going to shoot through the wormhole and get home. Blah blah blah. Fine, whatever. But we don't really get a satisfying resolution, I don't think. The Borg Queen falls over, she gets
yeah,
detached from her body. The rest of them shoot away. And then literally almost the minute that Voyager is through the wormhole, the episode ends. It's
yeah.
like bam, credits. It's like, whoa, 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 guys, like,
Yeah, there was a
chill.
strange lack of interest in
Mm.
seeing what happened in that aftermath.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yes, that was an interesting way to leave the Borg and leave Voyager. So I felt quite satisfying to actually return to that queen, get a really satisfying conversation and sort of desperate attempt to survive. And Picard really, you know, go to bat one more time. And I tell you what, the bit when he decides to part ways with Riker and Worf,
Yeah,
I really thought that was the end.
yeah, me too.
I really
So at that point, I'm saying my ending is going to happen.
yes. I
Laris is in. She's on Chaltok 4. She's sitting in that bar, and it's gonna happen.
yes. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I thought, nope, we're not coming back. Where This is it. Bye-bye Picard. Bye-bye Picard. This is so
Patrick
sad.
Stewart has said, "Yes, you can bring everyone else back, but only if you kill me at the end of it."
Yes. So that and I loved Worf's line. The two words that Klingons never want to acknowledge, and one is oh crap, what was the first one? Oh,
Defeat, yeah,
defeat and farewell. Defeat and
defeat and farewell. Yeah, after his line about "I'll make it a threesome."
It's just wonderful. I
Oh,
will come to, and I will make it a threesome.
I love the whole bit with the sword being too heavy for Riker to lift up as well.
Yes, that was another good moment. I loved also the stark difference between the cube size and the
Oh
D.
my
When
god!
you really
Yes,
started that pan back, that was
beautiful.
yes, and menacing. I don't think, again, in the way that the Enterprise D hasn't looked so good. I don't think the
Noticeable
Borg
cube.
have looked so scary.
Mm,
I
totally.
really don't. I mean, the first shot of the cube in the previous episode, and then seeing it here, this was really. I was like, they've done some. This is really good horror, good classic Star Trek horror. Because
Yeah,
Star Trek is actually big on horror.
yeah.
People don't really think about it, but Star Trek is more horror than it is science fiction at times. Which I think it'd be quite fun.
It's an
And
interesting comment about Star Trek being a cash cow to be milked. I don't feel that at all, actually. That's really interesting to me.
Star Trek is casual. Oh yeah, from Bifford. I mean, I guess here's with that Biffer. I think with any sort of TV show, movie, book, whatever, there is a monetary aspect. You do want to make money from it, and there are people who want that return, and will do whatever they can to get that return. And sometimes that is too much oversaturation. I think Marvel is a perfect example of that, where
Perfect example.
they
Yeah.
were just like, one episode, one film every year and a half or 2 years was a good amount. And then they thought, let's do 2 a summer. Wait, let's do 3 a summer. Let's do 3 a summer plus 5 TV shows. And at this point, it's like, I'm not even paying attention to this anymore. You are literally just doing this because you know people will come and gobble up your stuff. I don't think Star Trek is a cash cow at the moment. I don't think it's raking in a bunch of money. I think it's raking in enough money. And I think so. I mean, yeah. So I think that's why it's able to continue. But we're not oversaturated with Star Trek. We just have a couple of series that aren't very good. In my opinion, this is not Neil's opinion. This is my opinion. Discovery and Strange New Worlds could be better. And I'll save this discussion for another chat, because we're meant to be praising Picard Series 3, which we are doing, but there's a lot to talk about. So yeah, so I don't know. I don't think it's a cash cow at the moment, but there have been some misfires, and there's been some sort of doubling down, but there's also been some backsteps. And one backstep is clearly the changing of the Klingons. But save that for the end.
So just going back to Borg Cube and the trio on there, hats off to Jonathan Frakes and Marina Sirtis for the emotions in this episode.
Yeah.
And also using her powers once again in a good way, but mainly just saying goodbye, be it on the bridge before he's gone, over the comms when he's now pretty much sure that he's not going to make it out, and then to see them reunited as well was just beautiful.
Yes, I agree.
Where they went on holiday? Did they go to Orlando?
Orlando. I love those two choices. That was great. Yeah, no, I agree. The emotional resonance between those two, between everyone. I mean, even Beverly, when she's saying goodbye to Picard, she really thinks he's going to die. We all think he's going to die. We think they're all going to die. It was very much, you could the emotion was dripping off the screen. Like it was and it was hard to not feel tense and nervous for our characters. Where are they going to go? Are they actually going to come out alive?
The moment when they're talking to, when Riker and Troy are talking to each other over the comms, and she says, "You've got 1 minute. You've got 1 minute from when we blow up this beacon." And he says, "Look, I have given this man a lifetime. I owe him a minute."
Yeah.
And like already I'm like,
yeah.
And then he says to her, "I love you, Remzadi. I'll be waiting for you with our son." It's like,
yes. Oh my God. Yes. Yeah. Let's chat a little bit about the Titan and stuff. There was one moment that did not totally work for me. And that was when Raffi was like, "There's another ship. It's NCC 1701D." I'm like, Raffi, come on. You were meant to be Picard's like good friend. You would know that's the Enterprise D.
Yeah.
You would know that's the Enterprise. What are you doing? Why do you not know this? Like, and this is, I think, leads me back to like the inconsistencies with her character. She's not fully there. Whatever they're trying to do with her just doesn't fully land for me. And it's when she says things like that I'm like, what is going on with this character? Does anyone know who she is, what her story is? Because she was literally meant to be like Picard's right-hand person, like his new number one. At least that was the impression I got from Picard season 1.
Yeah. And that's how it was portrayed in the comic books as well. It's interesting. I didn't take that dialogue that way. I just sort of took her as being a bit like, it's NCC 1701D.
It's because 7 and 9 then goes, "That's the Enterprise." Well, yes, we know it's the Enterprise.
I do think in that scene, it would have been helpful if they had been in communication with each other ship-wise.
Yeah.
For them to have said, "This is what we're doing."
Yeah.
Like Picard's on the ground, Worf's down there, Riker's down there. They're going to shut off the beacon. Can you just deflect for the time being?
Yeah.
I mean, it's great that Seven's like, right, okay, so they're clearly doing a thing over there, so we should do a thing here.
Yeah.
But I think it would be nice if there'd been some communication back and forth between the two, just to have tied them all up working together, rather than them kind of sort of working adjacent to each other.
I suppose the reason they didn't do that is because the Borg would then know where they are.
Yeah.
But then the Queen knows where they are, so then the Borg should know where they are. So I guess that doesn't really matter. So yeah, they should have because the queen knows that they're there. So yeah. Forget that point. But yes, that sort of annoyed me. But the fight sequence
Loved it.
was
Loved
very
it.
good. It's very good.
Again, I thought they made use of what budget they had really well. The fleet looked great. No one this time going to be complaining that there was only one ship, like at the end of season 1, where it was like 100 versions of the same ship. This was a very diverse fleet. You could spend hours looking at all. In fact, I think Dave Blass has shared loads of designs. There are a lot of different types of ship in there.
Yeah. They're looking around and seeing what was there was such a that was a treat.
The USS Pulaski.
Yes, the Pulaski. Yes. Oh my gosh. When I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, even Pulaski got a little reference. Way to go.
And the first one I spotted was the Defiant class ship. There was a Defiant class in the middle of the frame. I was like, oh.
Yes. I love the Defiance. I love the Defiant so much. The Defiant, it's really hard. The Enterprise A or the Defiant, I love them both almost equally. There's just something about that ship, that tough little ship.
I love that.
I love it. Do you think or wish that we could have got more?
Part of me, the first time I watched it, not knowing what was going to happen, was edging towards the edge of my seat, thinking, okay, everyone appears to be just completely done for at this point. Like, they've managed to get out of the transporter. They've shot the cloak. The Titan is basically dead in the water.
Yeah.
The rest of them aren't going to come now. They're inside. They're deep in the ball cube. They're stuck in there. Either they take the shot or everyone is literally screwed. Yeah. So at that point, I was like, okay, who is about to fly in? Like, did Janeway go to the Fleet Museum and take Voyager? Or did Miles go and grab the Defiant? Like, are any of those other legacy characters grabbing their ships and we're about to have a fleet of the old ships?
Yeah.
That would have been awesome to me.
Yes, yeah. That would have been, I think if the opening, if the beginning chunk of the season had been restructured a little bit, you could have ended up with a big battle with a bunch of legacy characters coming in together. That actually would have been awesome. The whole thing about the whole Fleet Museum charging into action, the Defiant, the Voyager, the Enterprise D, that would have been pretty awesome. That would have been the Rick Berman era, just swooping in to save the day, would have been quite something. I suppose with time and budget, possibly that could have happened.
So apparently there is a roundtable interview that exists that they've just done for the finale where Terry said, if you go to the first draft of the script, Tuvok, there was a scene where they found Tuvok being held captive in a cell by the changelings, where Ro was also there. Ro had not died. And I don't know if this is Terry, like, just spitballing, but this is what he says was in the script. And that there was also, it would have been Janeway who would have given Seven her promotion.
That makes sense.
It's floating around a lot on social media at the moment with people saying we were robbed. And he makes it very clear, look, I had these ideas that I would have loved to have done, but they all said to me, you don't have the money to do this.
Yeah.
It was not a case of stuff was shot and then cut out. This was if I'm doing my dream, this is what my dream would be.
Yes. Yeah. And I think people don't understand that. This is where it's like, this isn't a criticism of the show. This is Paramount, give Terry more money.
Yeah.
Give him more money, because you do not understand how huge, how even bigger this season would have been had you had that Janeway cameo. You had those, like, Ro is still alive. That would have been.
This is, look what he was able to do with what he had.
Yes.
Imagine he had more.
Yes.
Although at the same, do you know what? Part of me actually, as much as I did want to see Janeway, and I felt like we'd name dropped her so much that she had to appear.
Yeah.
At the end, I kind of felt like, do you know what? I like that no one came in to take my focus off my favorite people.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. If this is why it's like, if you were going to bring in a bunch of legacy characters, you would have needed to have front loaded the season with TNG stuff, so you get that out of the way, and then you have to then devote some care and attention to legacy character bringbacks, and sort of Avengers this situation, and that is a big task. That is a big task. Yeah. So, I'm really happy that we really don't have Deep Space Nine characters apart from Worf in this. He's a nice bridge between those two. I'm glad we didn't, we could have gone back to Deep Space Nine. We could have seen Kira. We could have seen O'Brien. There are characters that sort of make sense. O'Brien sort of makes sense, actually, because he is another sort of bridging character. They could have brought him back, but I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad what we got is terrific. And I think there's wishful thinking and there's all the what ifs that we would love to see, that Terry would have loved to have done. And like we said, budget was such a huge thing. And that's why, we really only jump around from a handful of sets, most of which were created for season 2. And then they're having to work with that. That's why we keep going back to Guinan's bar, because that's all there is. We don't even see the exterior of Guinan's bar when they're actually meant to be at Guinan's real bar, because I don't know. I just wish that there was one joke in there about how it makes no sense. Someone needed to say, did she not remember that 10 forward was like at 10 o'clock forward on the D? Like, it had nothing to do with being at 10 forward on some street, on number 10 Forward Street. Anyone? Someone needed to say that, because there were digs at seasons 1 and 2, and I don't actually know if they were intentional digs or just trying to be funny. I'm confused on them, but I'll chat about them in just a bit when we sort of wrap up the Last Generation. The other thing that was funny to me was when Seven and Raffi are trying to work out what to do. Raffi's like, they're using predictive algorithms, and like Twitter, TikTok, like the commentary couldn't be more clear.
The kids are using the predictive algorithms again.
Yeah. Okay, so what's left really? I guess the last bit is sort of Picard and Jack.
How did you feel about the pacing of Last Generation and the fact that they did as much as they did in an hour? Because that was what got me. I mean, I had intentionally, and I know I said this to you, I had intentionally not looked at how much where I was in the episode.
Yeah.
Until they were wrapping up and Riker was doing his captain's log. It's day 1, a brand new day.
Yeah.
And that was the only time I looked at it, and I just messaged you instantly because I was like, Jesus. I thought I had like 5 minutes of this thing left, and I have like 19 minutes.
Yes. Yeah. It was one of those things where I think they front loaded the episode with all of the action that you needed. It's very, very action packed. We have had a lot of little splashes of action throughout the whole season, but this episode it's almost like an inverse of a classic TNG episode, in which the front bit is the slow bit and the last bit is all the action. This bit is like, okay, we're going to give you all the action that you've been waiting for. And I mean, they really didn't disappoint. So, and interspersed across that action were, I think, really wonderful character moments. The Picard on bridge saying goodbye, Picard and Riker and Worf parting ways on the Borg cube. Really good moments scattered throughout. So
Deanna
I was
not crashing the ship.
Deanna not crashing the ship. Data being like, look, you just need to trust me.
Trust my gut.
Yeah.
Data saying trust my gut was amazing. I love that.
Yeah. So there was those little moments that I think it all sort of held together really well. The pacing worked. Yeah, it was just a really sharply done, like 40 minutes, because then the rest is the nice wrap up. It gave us the action packed conclusion that I think we were expecting, and I loved every minute of it. I can't lie. Biffer in the chat says only 7 people to run the Enterprise D. The ship used to have a crew of 1,012 people during the TV show. Did they hire a crew of non-essential people? Well, I mean, if we can't criticize too much, because Kirk did steal the Enterprise and captain it with like 4 people. so there is. I mean, also, if you think about, what it is possible to maintain, to have a skeleton crew.
And the computer can run the ship as well. Then I'm sure there's been scenarios where computers had to take over, or
Yeah.
like moments when the whole crew was incapacitated apart from Data for
Yeah.
like a minute.
Yeah.
But it didn't fall out of the sky and
Yeah.
crash and burn.
Yeah.
And I know what you mean, Biffa, because there's that one establishing shot in The Last Generation where all the lights are on, and I'm looking, going, is anyone walking around in there?
Yeah.
And then my brain goes, well, no, because there's only 7 people on there. But then why are all the lights on? But because it looks amazing.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, interesting point.
Yeah, but I'm fine with it. I mean, again, Kirk and his handful of people piloted a Klingon vessel, the Bird of Prey. How many people does it take to pilot a Klingon ship? I don't know. I guess as long as everything is working and in tip top shape,
yeah,
it's fine. You gotta do what you gotta do. Like, I think about, like, I don't know, even like, this might be a lame example. You think about people who actually like take real ships out on the ocean. Like, sometimes they can be manned by a small number of people. Sure, the more the merrier. The more to kind of oversee things, the better. But also, the Enterprise D had a huge complement of civilians.
That's true. There wasn't there?
Yeah. So take that into account as well. Let's see. I really like the final moments with Jack and Picard when he's trying to get Jack to come out of the Borg trance.
Yeah. I know. I mean, you could say it's that old classic trope of love conquers all, and it's that thing that I complain about every week when I watch The Flash, that love conquers everything. But something about the way it's written just really, really works.
Yeah.
I think it's because they find so much common ground. Jack getting lost in the euphoria of being inside whatever that was, being inside the Unimatrix, being inside the Borg, and then hearing Picard say to him, "You're doing exactly what I did."
Yeah.
Just it tied it perfectly back into the idea of family. It tied it back into who Picard was. And actually, do you know what I've never really thought of? But actually, Jack reminds me of Picard when he was younger and he got stabbed by the Nausicaan and had to have a heart transplant.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I've never really thought about that because I'm not up to that point in my rewatch at the moment. But he is actually very much like the young, reckless Picard.
Yes.
And they find that common ground.
Yes.
And it broke my heart when he said, "Then I will stay with you till this is over."
Yes.
Because once again, I'm going, no, my ending's going to happen.
I know. I was like, no. You got to save Jack. Someone's got to save Jack. Yeah, that was good. I think again, it was a wonderful moment of Jack finally, finding his real connection, the real connection, the human connection. The human adventure is just beginning. That's what landed so well for me in that moment. It really was a touching scene, I thought. Yeah, I loved it. And I also love the fact that Jack's Borgness is very similar to Locutus's Borg.
Yeah,
Borg
very much.
I thought that was cool. Now, this scene just absolutely blew me away. And that was, as you were talking earlier, when Riker was, he's about to die and he's just telling Deanna that he loves her and he'll see her in the afterlife. And she's like, I know where they are. She redeems herself from Star Trek 7, takes the helm, puts in the coordinates where they are. That
wow
scene, fuck. Like,
doesn't it just make you wish that they had that level of special effects in 1987?
Oh, I mean, them looking up and seeing the Enterprise come down, swoop down. You feel how big that ship is, and they're all looking up at it. I'm just like, this ship has never looked so cool.
Yeah, it
really hasn't looked this cool, and they're milking it in all of the right ways. And then they beam them all aboard. I just thought, like, the space dock scene and that swooping through the Borg cube, which massive Star Wars reference.
Yeah, huge.
I mean, that is the Millennium Falcon flying through the Death Star, obvious. Even the Borg Queen is a bit Palpatine in episode 9.
Palpatine, yeah.
Which is funny to me, but like, it's done so well.
I know. And even when she's just screaming, like, you could question why is she just now screaming, but I just loved it. Like
Yes.
everything's crashing down around her, and she's just there doing the classic villain, like
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I kind of buy it. I'm like, this is her last at
yeah,
Jennifer. She's losing finally forever now. And also the fact that she's been sucking life out of the Borg that are left, and they're all sort of like zombie Borgs,
yeah.
or that was, like I said, stuff of nightmares. Stuff was, yeah. But that scene with it, where the Enterprise comes swooping in rather, and they get beamed aboard. It's burned into my brain. I'm like, that so fucking cool, so good. And then of course, then we got the two ships in the sunset reference: Star Trek 6, Undiscovered Country, Enterprise
Yep.
A, and the Excelsior. Weirdly, I think I might have mentioned this in over DMs, but the Excelsior, when we see it destroyed in Vox, doesn't have the same registry number.
No,
And
you
I
did
don't
tell
know
me that.
why.
Yeah, I don't know if that's there's something that happened there, or like
Is it a new class of but that wouldn't make sense, because the Enterprise has new classes, but they keep the
yeah.
yeah. I might need to DM someone about that. I'm just
Dave Glass,
curious.
Dave, if
Yeah.
you're listening,
Yes. Let us know. Let us know, because I'm curious. I really want to know why it wasn't the Excelsior D. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, I feel like it should have been something like that, but it wasn't. But also, to that point, why wasn't the Defiant A at the end of Deep Space Nine?
True, because they did just reclassify it from
Yeah.
whatever it was to just call it the Defiant, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That has always bugged me. Always. When they were like, when Admiral whatever his name is
Tells him he can
like,
recruit the ship. Yeah.
yeah, we've got you a new ship. We're gonna rechristen the Defiant. I'm like, the Defiant A? The Defiant A? And they don't do it. I'm like, I don't understand why you didn't do it. Anyway. Yes, that was good. We got a lovely scene with Tuvok. One last moment with Shaw.
Yeah, I loved that.
Yeah,
they had to work him in somehow, and I thought that was the right way to do it. I was maybe a little overly romantic in him being, before all of his character development in the show, calling her Seven, because I feel like, would you really have done that there and then continue to call her Hanson for the 8-9 episodes that you were alive after that? But
I suppose, because I've watched it twice, and so I'm trying to read it in a couple of different ways. And I'm like, is he saying Hanson 7 of 9? Is he saying it like, what I'm trying to decide is he saying 7 of 9 in a respectful way, or just like a baffled way? I'm on this ship with Hanson, a Borg, 7 of 9, who is actually a really good person and really honorable and really tough. But I agree. It's the tone. His tone is a little bit too romantic.
Yeah.
And I think
you could probably criticize most of this last section for being overly romantic, but I just don't care.
No, me neither.
Because they deserve it.
Yeah. This totally, but actually you already mentioned it, but if I had the time and the money, and if I was in charge, but I wouldn't have done such a good job. So anyway, but I would have. I think the Titan's mission for this last episode should have been about saving people.
Yeah.
And I think saving Tuvok or something like that would have been the better thing to do. But I understand budget, all those reasons are why we didn't get that, and that's clearly what they wanted to do. I think that's the impression I get from what you were saying. They wanted to do something like that, but they couldn't for time and money. So that makes sense. And Seven becomes captain, which, literally after the first episode, if someone wants to troll through my tweets, I literally said, I want a Captain 7 show. And well, we'll see. Maybe we'll get that.
How did you feel about not seeing or hearing her phrase?
Oh, I'm glad. I'm very glad about that. I think it's interesting that Strange New Worlds makes the same joke. And doesn't work for me with that. It almost doesn't work in this, but works just enough. And I think the reason it works is part of the reason is Raffi is meant to have known Picard, but she does also mention like Kirk's line, take us out, So I'm like, okay, I get it. This is sort of our last big indulgence of Star Trek nostalgia.
Yeah.
So I get it. But I'm actually glad that we don't hear her call, because save that for her show.
Yeah.
If we get that, save it for that. Because we didn't need it. We didn't need it. Should we talk about the last two big reveals? The G and that letter of the alphabet.
Yeah.
So
G.
We get that last scene, well, second to last scene with Kirk and Picard, with Beverly. Imagine that, with Beverly and Picard. And, I know, right? He's a zombie. Phoenix Project worked. They're flying to space dock. Jack's nervous about his commission. He's an ensign now. He's gonna be working on a starship. Blah blah blah. And it's like, what ship is he gonna be on? Well, it's obvious. It seems clear it's gonna be on the Titan. And there was a part of me that was expecting a different ship, but we see the Titan, and then Beverly has her line. Well, we know that you don't like what was her line? Something about
we know that you don't like fanfare.
Fanfare, which is that a dig to Picard seasons 1 and 2? Because he didn't want fanfare. He wanted like his own little Picard story without any Starfleetiness in it.
Maybe.
I feel like that's a joke. I feel like that's an inside joke. But yeah, so we get our first look, and the Titan A has been rechristened the Enterprise G.
It didn't sit right with me.
I've seen a few people say that.
Why? I'm getting there. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's that it's overly romantic, or that it should have been the USS Picard. Like, but then he would need to be dead for that. In theory, you would have to have had special dispensation for him to be called that. It to be called that when he's not dead. Although technically he did die.
Yeah, true.
I get it, but I also don't know how I feel about it yet.
I think the USS Picard would have made more sense.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Especially because this is the end of Picard as well.
Yes, and if you're leaning into Star Trek Legacy, we're on the USS Picard.
Yeah,
NCC blah 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 blah. That could work. The Enterprise. The thing is, I love the Titan. I love the look of the Titan, and I love the fact that the Enterprise G is this make of starship. That works for me, because I don't, like I said, don't really care for I don't hate the E, but it's one of my least favorite. My least favorite is the F. Or if you really want to go far enough with it, the Enterprise J. Have you ever seen the model of that?
No.
Awful.
Gonna Google that.
Awful.
I've seen Voyager J, because that's in Discovery.
Is that the one with the nacelles that don't connect anything?
Yeah. It's like some kind of magnetic technology.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make
sense. About that.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Anyway, I'm not gonna trash that right now. But yeah, that just doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, look up the J, because I really don't like it. Yes. It's like the worst of the the worst of the E and the F. It's like, we're gonna make this as pencil thin as we can make it.
What? Ugh.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, this is from an episode of Enterprise. See, the show I haven't watched. Oh,
wait, no. The Enterprise J is on Enterprise?
The NCC 1701J was a 26th century Federation Universe-class starship operated by Starfleet in a possible future, and it says ENT Azati Prime. Observation deck of the Enterprise J. Historic Battle of Procyon 5. In 2154, as Captain Jonathan Archer of the NX-01 was preparing to undertake a suicide mission, Temporal Agent Daniels transported Archer to the observation deck of the Enterprise J to witness the battle while the vessel was in trans-dimensional disturbance.
Oh, okay.
Archer would later reveal to Degra about his trip to the future on board the J and learning. Okay, so it's in an episode of Enterprise.
I totally spaced on that. I literally spaced on that. But yeah, I hate it. It doesn't exist. It's not real. It's not real. It's not real. It's not real. Sorry. Bullshit. I hate it. It's an ugly ship, and I don't support it. Don't support it.
I wonder what happened to the F. Did the F get destroyed with poor Shelby on the bridge, or?
Well, they said it was being decommissioned.
Yeah, we never found out why it was being decommissioned. So I'm intrigued to know if they had any behind-the-scenes rationale as to what that story would have been if they were to tell it.
Yes, I think that's the confusing bit. Is if the Enterprise F is getting decommissioned, is there already a G in works? If there's not a G in works, why does the Titan get that mantle? Or would it have been easier for the show to just have a similar class of ship, a new Neon Constitution class ship that they're like, we've rechristened Picard, like, we're going to the Titan. It's not the Titan, it's the Enterprise G. But then you still have the same problem because it's like it looks the same. But I think it's that problem of the Titan has had its own series of adventures.
Yeah.
And now they've just stripped the Titan of its name and given it to the Enterprise.
So now what's the Titan? Will there be another Titan? Something else will have to be called the Titan, and I don't know. There's something there that's not quite going to work for me. But
yeah, it's probably one of the, if there's a third thing, and because I've become more on the fence about it. When I first saw it, I was like, Enterprise G, and it's a Titan. I love the Titan. Yes. But when I let myself calm down, I was like, oh, it's pretty tight on on the crew of the Titan, who they've been on the Titan like, oh, now it's the fucking Enterprise.
And also means that if we do get Legacy becomes another Enterprise-based show.
Which I don't mind. I did actually say, I think I did some tweets saying, look, I want Legacy, and I want them to be captaining an Enterprise ship. I thought that would be great. Do it. That'd be fun.
The flip side for me is that I do love the fact that Seven gets to be the captain of the Enterprise.
Yes. Yeah, I like that too. That's why I'm like, just make it a new ship. Just make it a slightly different Neo Constitution class ship. Just do it. Just do it. And you know what? Maybe if there was time and money, maybe they would have. Maybe the fact that there is little time and money, and the ship is going to look identical. They just thought, we'll just say rechristen it, in honor of Picard saving the day. But the tricky thing is that Picard didn't save the day with the Titan. He saved the day with the D.
Yeah.
So it's complicated and kind of muddy, but the fact that I do love this ship, and I love that that she's that Seven is the captain of it, and it's boldly going on new adventures. And yeah, the thing that did irk me,
I thought of you straight away.
Raffi as her number one just didn't sit right. I think I was so taken aback by Raffi being number one that I couldn't wrap my mind around the Titan being renamed fully. And now I'm kind of able to think about them both. There's that her final scene with Worf where she's talking to her. There's clearly a budgetary reason why we can't see anybody. And then, say hello to your granddaughter. Oh, she's shy. Like,
look at this piece of stock footage from Adobe.
I know, it's so bad. Oh God,
Although I'm pretty sure that we've seen that footage elsewhere. I'm sure that's what she was looking at when she saw her ex-husband earlier in the season. So they did at least use the same piece of stock footage.
It was,
but yeah.
It's like I don't want to shit on the show because there's cringe moments in everything every once in a while. That was one of them. I think I would have thought, hey, cut that stuff. We don't need it. It doesn't look good. It's not playing right. Don't do it. I know they're trying to wrap up Raffi's story. We haven't spent any time with Raffi this season. There's no real point in wrapping any of that stuff up. She also really made her bed in the beginning of the season anyway when she chose the Federation over her family. So just leave that story for another time if you get to it. And yeah, but yeah. So her last conversation with Worf, and she's like, "My face was all over the TV." I'm like, "Why? What the fuck did you do? Like, why would your face be all over the TV? Picard and Seven and Shaw did loads of like. You were just sort of support. Like,
so
what?
when I watched it today, it seemed like there was more to it, and it seemed like they were almost keeping some of their involvement on the down low. Because
Maybe.
there's something in the dialogue about it being classified,
Yes.
and basically that whole thing is then that Worf made sure her family knew that it was
Yeah.
her who was involved.
Yes.
And so it seemed like they were really trying to push the Worf loves Raffi familial, not romantically,
Yes.
kind of bond.
Yes.
But there was something in there around the dialogue that made me think, oh, are we trying to keep some of this? Are we Section 31ing some of this and keeping it quiet?
Yes. Yeah.
And that, yeah, I don't know. There is definitely something in there. I knew they would do that, though. I knew they would have reunited with her family. And I knew there was no way they would be in it because Mason Gooding, who played her son, is far too famous to spend 5 seconds in Star Trek now.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah, I just thought leave it. Don't do it. Don't need it. It's not relevant. It really isn't been a part of this season. It wasn't a part of season 2. Please just don't. And they did, and it was awkward. So I didn't like
the hug.
that.
The hug was nice.
No, the hug was nice. No, the moment between her and Worf was fine.
Yeah.
Her family stuff, I thought that's what didn't track. That didn't play for me. But the moment between her and Worf did, because we'd kind of seen them do some stuff. I think the other thing, while I'm criticizing Raffi, and this isn't, this isn't a dig at the actress or anything like that. This is just the character. The other thing that I think annoys me is that for Picard seasons 1 and 2, she's the only person of color she's the only person of color in the main cast. She's the only black lady in the cast, and you've made her a drug addict, alcoholic who has abandoned her family and has anger problems. Like, how many cliches could you put into one person? And it's your only black character.
That's right. Good point.
That was something that always did sort of annoy me. I thought you could have, Benjamin Sisko has always been. I would have to say Sisko might be my favorite captain of them all. Just beating out Kirk. And that might be. I just think the way Sisko's storyline was handled, the way that he was a good dad, a good captain, a good commander, who balanced these issues of love and loss and command with such strength and wisdom, was quite wonderful to see.
Yeah.
And portrayed a very, very positive image of, single fathers and single black fathers. And so when you get to Star Trek Picard and you have angry black woman who's tripping out on drugs, whose drugs problem and alcohol problem and anger problems, you're just like, oh. And then of course Seven is also has anger problems. You're like, why is every woman angry in this show? It's like, does anyone just chill for a second, guys? Chill. But yeah, so I think that was something that just sort of partly why I never connect with that character. And again, why we got to this point in season 3 where I'm like, I don't care about her family storyline. Skip it.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on the G or Raffi before we do the last big reveal?
No, the one thing that does spring to mind, which is a criticism I've seen a couple of times on social media, is do you feel like it has too many endings?
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, but I can see it. There is, you kind of get the moment of Deanna leaving her office with Data, fade to black 1 year later, could have been an ending. Then you get Picard and Crusher putting Jack on the ship, and we fade to black again when the Titan, now Enterprise,
Yes.
warps out.
Yeah.
Fade to black. Could have been an ending.
Yeah.
Worf and Raffi have a conversation.
Yeah.
Although that's slightly before that, isn't it? But there's a lot of moments where it's sort of, it's like, oh, is that, no, okay, bit more. No, okay, a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I've seen that criticized a couple of times.
Yeah, the Worf and Raffi happens right at the same time as the Deanna and Data.
Yeah, before the 1 year later, isn't it? I forgot about that.
Yeah, the 1 year later then is Jack. And I agree. I thought that was going to be the end. I thought, oh, this is a good ending. Here we go. And then we had it just a little bit more with the original crew at the at Guinan's bar.
At which point I said to myself, how did I never see Poker coming? How did I not see Poker coming?
It's true. It's true. And it was a nice scene. It was a lovely scene of them all sitting together, the camera spinning around before it goes up top and imitates all good things. Really, really quite sweet, really wonderful. I was very happy with that. And no, the multiple endings didn't bother me. I mean, I'm a big fan of Lord of the Rings, and the Fellowship, the Return of the King has about 12 endings, so I'm fine with it. I can see why someone might say that. And again, if I'm going to be ultra critical, then you could say, look, yeah, you could have trimmed some of those scenes and given more time to other bits, blah 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 blah. But no, I think
Laris.
Well, this is the thing. This kind of falls into my digs. Really, just what the fuck? Where is she? What happened?
I do feel like, I get it. You only have a finite amount of time to wrap all of this up, and you can't literally go to everyone we've ever met ever and see what, like, I don't know what Mott's doing right now.
Is he still to her planet?
Exactly. Is Mott still in a barbershop somewhere? What happened to Robin Leffler? Is she still got all her rules wherever she is in the universe?
Yeah.
But in a season that picked up on so many details, like Hangar 12, like Geordie is now in charge of the Fleet Museum, you leave that, which was so much of a part of that opening act in that first episode.
Yes, that was interesting to me. I want to really quickly. Biffer in the chat says, "Does Picard and Beverly end up together?" I vote no. Ambiguous.
It is ambiguous. Yeah, are they sat next to each other at the poker table? That was the one thing I meant to look for.
I don't think so. I think they're sitting sort of across.
I think they're opposite, aren't they?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's no sort of romantic moment, but not unromantic moment.
No,
on the shuttle with Jack when they're taking him to the Enterprise.
It really sort of felt like mother and father taking the kid to school.
Yeah.
Which implies, have they rekindled? It was a weird thing to. It was weird to just even include Laris. I know they had to tie up something from her, the end of season 2 where they sort of get together, which was I never liked, because she had a husband who just randomly died. Say that again.
Orla Brady. I love Orla Brady, so I'm like, just bring
her
back.
No, she's wonderful. Yeah, I would have liked if they had actually made her like one of the people who goes off with Picard. That would have been great. I don't understand why they didn't do that. I actually thought the 2 Romulan assassins who work for him would have been the 2 good people to go with him on this adventure. But no, they're going to stay with the
one of them between season 1 and 2 was an odd choice as well. I don't know if that was a pandemic thing. He just wasn't maybe available. Too many people in the bubble.
Pandemic hadn't happened yet.
When they started shooting season 2?
No.
Had it not?
No. I don't think so. Pretty sure. I'm pretty sure pandemic hadn't happened for season 2 yet. Maybe it did, and I don't remember. But I'm pretty sure season 2, they did season 2 first, and then by the time they got to season 3 filming, pandemic had happened. I think I could be wrong. But I think that's how it rolled. But it was weird.
Killing him off between seasons was very strange as well. Yeah,
it was very, very weird choice.
Actually, good fan theory that I saw today was: could we not have had a moment with Laris where Picard just never did go back to her, but she is approached by someone and then decides to become the person who she is in season 2? The person in the past who is not Laris, doesn't have the ears, but is also played by Orla Brady. Like, could we have seen her go off to become one of those? I've forgotten what they're called. Not
The
traveler.
Gary Sevens.
Yeah. So could we have seen Laris agreeing to, because Picard left her and never came back to her, agreeing to go off and be a Gary Seven and end up with him then in the past?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But I guess didn't Picard season 2 sort of reference her being like a very distant relative of some of
It might have.
It was something like that. Yeah, I can't fully remember. That was a show. Speaking of hate watching, I hate watched season 2. I hate watched it because a colleague of mine was like, "Let's watch it every week," and I was like, "I don't want to. Please watch it." So I would watch it, and they'd be like, "What'd you think?" I'm like, "I didn't like it." And I still didn't like it. Like it was like, sorry guys, I'm sorry. Like you're making me watch something. Well, you're not making me, but I'm trying to participate, but this is really difficult. I'm sorry. Yeah, that would have been interesting actually, thinking about that. They should have capped off her story or just not had her there. But I guess I think you mentioned it in DMs that if that 1 year gap,
Yeah.
anything could have happened in that 1 year.
Yeah.
Picard could be there, or he could be with Bev. You know, it's ambiguous. It's ambiguous. Then we get that our credit shot, and then we get a post-credit scene of the Enterprise G, Jack in his quarters, unpacking his bag, putting up a picture of Patrick Stewart and Gates McFadden from a Star Trek press red carpet event.
Yeah. And he had one of the models of the fat one. He had a model of the fat one.
He did. He loves his Constitution, but he had a model of his dad's ship.
Yes, he did.
Quite sweet. And then we get the big reveal of Q. Pops into the room and is like, "Hey, little Picard. Oh, I thought humanity's trials were over. Yeah, your dad's trials are over. But you got some trials ahead. I thought you were dead. Fuck Picard season 2, son."
Okay. What did he say? I thought the next generation wouldn't be so linear.
Yeah. Because I gotta be honest, nothing.
So is he now River Song?
Well, here's the thing. I don't think he died.
Yeah.
I really don't. The idea that Q dies is stupid, and the fact that Picard season 2 tried to kill Q, I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you killing people off that don't need to die? You killed Picard in season 1, no reason. You're killing Q, no reason. Just no reason. If I went back and rewatched Picard season 2, Q's storyline throughout that whole season is really half-baked. It doesn't add up. It's very sloppy. It frustrates me. Because I love Q. John Delancey is like, how can you squander someone? Why would you squander someone like Q? Like, you know, there's those scenes where he's like menacingly looking at Picard's great whatever she is, niece or something like that. And outside at that table, I'm like, oh, where's this going? It doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And then we see a random scene where he's her counselor. Okay, what? You know, why is he dicking about? Why is he manipulating? We don't really understand. There's no real reason as to why. And it frustrated me. So I actually am. I'm so glad that they brought Q back, and they were like, again, it's like, forget that Borg shit, forget that Q shit. The Borg and Q, well, Borg are now really done. You've seen it. And Q is still there. Really sort of underwriting Picard 1 and 2 in a really weird way.
Yeah, it is. There is a weird disconnect there now between those three stories.
Yeah, and it makes
an anthology show.
Yeah, it makes me it's funny. I did a tweet earlier today. I was like, you know, some of the best legacy sequel series that we've had have been Dexter New Blood, Star Trek Picard, Series 3. And it's funny because Star Trek Picard Series 3 just sort of stands out on its own. There are bits that you sort of need to know about seasons 1 and 2, but if you don't, so like my wife hasn't watched any of 1 and 2, followed it perfectly. You know, there was a couple of bits where I had to explain, like, oh, when she said,
body.
Yeah, but they explained it enough I think
Yeah.
in the show. But she asked, like, when Raffi called Seven a pirate, she's like, "What does that mean?" I'm like, "Oh, forget it. Don't worry about it. Something in season 1 doesn't make sense. It's pointless. Don't worry about it." So yeah, it was one of those moments where I don't know if the show was intentionally making an effort to make a statement to say, look, I know that this stuff wasn't up to scratch or what you wanted. We're really trying to give the fans what they want with a wonderful song for this cast. Or is it just a coincidence that the show played out this way? I'm not really sure. I don't think anyone would actually tell me if I were to ask that blunt of a question. So it's complicated, but it's funny because they're in. Like I said, I have a list of digs. Like there were the constant digs at the wine, Picard's wine, which was funny because, like I said last time we reviewed it, Picard wouldn't be on his vineyard; he'd be doing archaeology.
Exactly.
He just would. There was the pizza digs because it was stupid that Riker was just stuck on a planet making pizza. Like,
so many digs at that house as well. So many digs at that house.
Yes, no, seriously, that, like, digs at that planet, digs of them being not her, Troy being like, I don't want to live there.
And where was Kestra at the end? They didn't even talk about taking her on holiday.
They didn't. That was also weird. Yeah, that was again one of those moments. Again, I think the Borg, the real Borg, is out there is a massive dig. Q being alive is a massive dig. The Fleet Museum and the fact that the Enterprise, or not the Enterprise, but that Constellation class ship looks like TOS and does not look like Strange New Worlds. I'm like, what am I meant to think? What is cynical Luke meant to think when he's seeing these things? This to me, it's like, well, if you're trying to make connect the tissues between all of the current shows that you have out right now, you're not doing it. You're actually doing what TOS or what TNG and Deep Space Nine did, and respect the legacy, and the looks of that old stuff, and just moving things forward. So, what's going on? Like, not at any point really acknowledging the Raffi Seven relationship, doing nothing with that. These are interesting choices that I'm like, are these cut for time? Are these, but some of these aren't time related. Like, I understand not developing Raffi and Seven's relationship further in this season, but I'm like, but these other things, I'm like, there's some motive behind these comments. What are they? What are they? Maybe I'm overthinking it. It's possible. What do you think, though?
It's a tough one, isn't it? I don't know, but it's hard to avoid it. It's there.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much to pick up on it either.
Mm-mm.
It's not like it's buried really, really deep in there. It is fairly close to the surface that there are definite, moments where we are overwriting things that have happened. I don't know. I never, in watching it, I never took it as a like an actual like dig. I don't know. I really don't know.
It's the Rise of Skywalker moment. It's that moment when Rey throws her lightsaber and Force Ghost Luke catches it, and Luke is like, "Don't you ever do this. I know I did in that last movie, but that was stupid.
Yeah.
Don't ever do it. Now go on a Goonies adventure to find the Death Star."
Yeah.
So it was the moments kind of played like that to me. I'm like, this is weird. Like, I don't know what am I meant to think? And I also, I think the other thing that kind of that's a bit of a disconnect with me is, it's like, we've had this is a major event in Starfleet's history, and I know that a lot can happen in 1,000 years. But I'm just sort of thinking, like, imagine Starfleet now becoming an isolationist, Earth breaking away from Starfleet, being an isolationist civilization, not wanting to engage with other aliens, Starfleet being in ruins. After all this, Like, really?
Yeah, and I wonder whether some of that is a consequence of creative decisions being made without thinking what other people might want to do or are coming up. Because they do say that they all talk writers' room wise.
Yeah.
They supposedly have these heads of department moments where, like, Mike McMahon from Lower Decks will sit down and talk to what Michelle Paradise is doing on Discovery,
Yeah.
and that they say they talk and that they will line stuff up. But I don't feel quite like I see all the evidence of that.
No, I don't
Yeah,
either.
anyway.
And I guess the way you can play it off is say, look, they are 1,000 years in the future, or I guess not 1,000 years anymore. It's like, well, a little bit less than that, but it's so far in the future that we can just do whatever we want, But I'm just like, it's 1,000 years is a long time, but at the same time, it's not that long of a time. In the grand scheme of life, it's 1,000 years isn't that long,
Yeah.
So that sort of, especially when you have something as established as something like Starfleet, and I know civilizations come and go and things, but I just, yeah, I struggle to connect what the future of Discovery is like with this ending here. I'm like, this just, those sort of, the future is a dystopia
Yeah.
after all of this, like after all this time of saving Earth.
What can be bigger than this that causes that to happen?
Yeah, like just don't do it, don't do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so but anyway, wrapping up Picard, and then we can chat just briefly about Strange New Worlds and Section 31 and stuff. Unless you gotta go, I don't know, but okay, good. Yes. Super long episode.
I was going to say, do we breach the 259 from last time?
Oh yeah, that's right. We probably will. We probably will. It depends, but yeah, probably. But I have to say, Picard Series 3 was everything I wanted from Picard from the very beginning. And that was the cast back together on a proper, a proper mission to save something, the characters returning to who they are, not stuck on planets making pizza, not being a robot, not being wistful. Yeah, I could not be happier with what they did. I really felt like there was a conscious effort to play with the future of Star Trek, to push it forward, try to do new things, try to take characters in different directions, shake up their lives a little bit, but also respect the past, and lead us into a new future. And I'm, the end with the Enterprise G shooting off, I'm like, I want to follow that ship. I
Yeah.
want to see where that goes. I'm ready for that. Let's announce a Section 31 movie. Fuck you. God damn it. But yeah, what are your closing thoughts on Picard Series 3?
I just, yeah, it's fulfilled everything, really. It takes away any bitter taste that was left behind by Nemesis. And
Yeah.
it just, it's like a gift that you never expected you would ever get. I mean, rewatching it today, there was a moment, I think it's the moment where Beverly is about to, like, she does that line where she says a lot has happened in 20 years, and then just like blows the shit out of the ball cube.
Oh, I love
Where
that.
I had like an out of body experience where I was like, hang on a minute, did I die? And this is like my version of heaven where it, like,
Yeah.
TNG never ended,
Yeah.
and it's just gonna go on like forever.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just perfect in that respect.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, there are nitpicks, like we said, but they're positive criticisms. It's been wonderful.
Yes.
And I'm very, very, very sad that it's over.
I am too. I'm legitimately sad. I'm like, I can't believe it took 2 false starts, but we got this really beautiful season of Star Trek Picard, this wonderful swan song. It really was a gift. And Biffer, watch it and love it. Watch and love it. I don't, do it. Just do it. Just find it, watch it. Watch it at a friend's house if you don't want to pay for Paramount. I don't care. But
embrace it.
embrace
Embrace it.
it, embrace it, buddy. Biffer does say the Hollywood Writers Union strike around the corner. Enterprise G show won't be made anytime soon. I mean, there is. I mean, yeah, the Enterprise, the Star Trek Legacy, which is the kind of name that's floating about that I doubt would actually be called that. But yeah, we're definitely, we would be 2 years or so away from or more from anything like that. They could begin production, but they wouldn't be able to write anything. We'll watch it again, Biffer. God damn it. He says I saw I saw all the Picard 3 already. We'll watch it again.
And then listen to the soundtrack and then buy the vinyl.
Yeah. So good. Yeah, no, I would love for it to happen. The writer's strike will cause delays for a lot of things. I'm assuming we're going to go back to another 2008 situation where a lot of things are going to grind to a halt, and we're going to have a bunch of screwed over seasons, and shows are going to be ended sooner rather than later because of all this stuff. But yeah,
Picard for me as well. Also, kind of like the whole journey from it being announced to where we are right now, kind of punctuates my whole sort of journey doing this whole podcasting thing as well, because I know I mentioned it when we streamed before, but like that it was really early in my kind of career of attending events when I got to go to the premiere, like the proper walk the red carpet premiere for season 1, and then season 3 is one of my first big junkets that I've taken part of. To take part as well, interviewing cast and creatives and stuff. So I feel super close to this program as well from that aspect, because I feel like it's kind of punctuated some of my journey as well.
Yeah, no, I like that. I like that sort of full circle stuff. I think that's quite cool. Cool. Well, should we briefly talk about, because we had there's two things that came out. There's Strange New Worlds trailer, and then there's a Section 31 announcements. Strange New Worlds. What did you think of that trailer?
Ooh, so I am excited. I really enjoyed season 1. I really like how it is more episodic, and it does embrace more of the old Trek, but with more of the new Trek character sensibilities.
Yeah,
I like that. I like the fact that there were character arcs within episodic storylines. This trailer maybe played a little bit more lighthearted than I expected.
Yes,
because one of my favorite things about season 1 is how different every episode is. Different genre, different tone, and I felt like that worked really well. This felt a little bit more unified across the patch to me, but maybe that was just the way they were putting together the trailer, trying to cut together clips that fit together. Interested to see that Klingons have gone back to a sort of more TOS style uniform, but with a more TNG style forehead rather than ginormous plastic heads, which I was never really a fan of. That makeup was very strange to me, very rubbery, whereas this is much more what I would expect.
The strange new. I'm gonna try to find an image of it. Because
revolving doors, presumably some time travel, because I don't understand why they were in a contemporary era clothes shop struggling with a revolving door.
Wait, were they? What?
The very end of the trailer, when Kirk is stuck in a revolving door, they're actually in. It looks like they're just on a high street in a clothes shop.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I have some thoughts on Kirk. Dan from HR. Dan from accounting. That's it. Yeah, I forgot my own joke. Damn it. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. So
yeah, I like it.
I don't dislike it, but I think this is I think maybe what the disconnect with these shows frustrates me, because Klingons don't look like this at this time, and I'm like, there's a whole Deep Space Nine episode where they go back to the Trouble with Tribbles episode,
and they talk about it,
and Worf's like, I need to hide my head, and I need to, and blah blah blah. And there's like, oh, what happened? Well, there was a virus. So what are you doing? Like the first season of Discovery had these just monster Klingons that were absurd. I'm like, well, I don't know how you're meant to be hiding any of this. how does Worf fit in with this? And then we get Worf from TNG is back, and everyone's like, oh, that's a Klingon. That's what I love, right? And then they're like, well, people love Worf, so we're gonna do Worf again. But it's like, no, Worf, like, it doesn't fit. Like, continuity.
Yeah.
Some of these shows have to realize that continuity is a massive thing to fans.
Yeah.
And super nerds. And there's continuity that you can play with from time to time. But then there's other bits you kind of really need to just stick with. And Enterprise is guilty of this, by the way. Enterprise had Klingons look like TNG Klingons, and they should not have. So this is not a total dig just at New Trek. This is Old Trek did it as well, and I don't like it. So I'm being consistent in my criticism. But yeah, so that's one glaring thing. But do you think his head is CGI?
Oh, I took it to be a practical makeup, but I suppose I guess it's difficult.
Is weird to me. The eyebrow is what makes me think that it's CGI. I don't know. There's something about this element that doesn't.
It looks like there's a lot of light on the forehead, but the light isn't reflecting off the eyebrow.
Like I think the nose looks prosthetic.
Yeah.
But this bit, maybe it is. I'm just not sure. It does look very rubbery in a CGI sort of way.
There's another still, which is a slightly wider shot, where it's Spock and the same Klingon doing a cheers with their blood wine, and it looks very practical in that shot.
Yeah. Okay.
The lighting is better.
Yeah, it might be that. It might be that. But I will. I mean, I guess I need to sort of like admit some goodness from that, and it's like at least we're getting proper Klingons back. That is kind of nice. I appreciate that, because I just these Klingons here. Just let me bring this one up. It just didn't work for me.
No, don't do it. Don't do it.
Oh, it's got to happen. So you didn't like the Discovery Klingons either, then, I'm assuming?
No, I when I first saw them, I figured, okay, this is their way of saying,
like, why does she have 4 nostrils? Fuck's sake.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think what they wanted to, they obviously thought in the beginning, whichever one of them it was that developed it, of the like 5 different showrunners in season 1, clearly felt like they were going to reinvent the wheel, which is fine if that's what you're going to do and you're going to stick to it. And they obviously thought they were never going to touch continuity, even though they were making her Spock's sister. Or they obviously thought they were going to do their own thing. Like maybe at one point, I bet you there was a conversation at some point that this was actually going to be like Zachary Quinto. And that it would be like the Kelvin universe. And so they were just doing their own thing in another timeline. And then at some point, Paramount went, you know what Marvel does with that universe? Do that here. At which point they all went, oh, what? But no.
Yeah.
Like, we can't connect. If you're going to ask us to connect everything together, we have gone way off piste here.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
And then that's when you feel Discovery starts to reel itself back in, because it then readjusts itself closer to mainstream continuity.
Yes. Yeah. It is odd. It's. And I think this is partly where the disconnect for me comes in. I'm like, well, this doesn't really connect. And then you bring Pike in, and Pike's kind of cool and stuff, but like, but like Spock's sister, why do you got to be Spock? Yeah.
My biggest issue with that makeup was how rubbery the mouths are when they talk. Yeah. I can deal with most of the rest of it, but the mouths just they just look wrong to me when they speak.
Yeah, I would have accepted this as a 25th century Klingon minus 2 of the nostrils.
Yeah,
2 of the nostrils. Because like it's close enough. It's close enough. And I don't mind like the different pigments and stuff like that. But in that sense,
yeah, that was an interesting comment. And doing a whole storyline about the white Klingon was interesting.
Also, Discovery is not the first time to do that. They did do that in Deep Space Nine. There was. Yeah, there's like the pale Klingon or something like that, or the albino Klingon. There's let me see if I can find it. Deep Space Nine Klingon. The albino was an infamous criminal who launched his Klingon colony. 3 Klingon worship. I can't find it. Let me see if I type in. Riveting for the podcast, I know. No, I think
what's Biffa saying? Come on, what's Biffa up to?
Biffer is saying, I saw the whole of Picard 3 already. I've already seen that. Okay, right. Wait. Okay, yeah. So Biffer, you're not saying anything. Come on, Biffer. You gotta keep the comments going while I search for stuff. Yeah, the albino was an infamous criminal who launched numerous raids against Klingon colonies in the late 23rd century. Is he meant to be a Klingon though? That's what's confusing to me. Species is unknown. Okay, never mind. Maybe he's not. Anyway, whatever, fine. But there were, across TNG and TOS, there were different shades of Klingon. They just didn't go as extreme as purple and pale white, cream white, I guess. But yeah, I'm fine. I was fine with that kind of stuff. But this would have worked in a 25th century version, not in a.
So did this trailer sell you on season 2?
No. Very quick on that, aren't I? I was a little bit too. I should have like held off a second. No.
Not even a pause.
No, right. It didn't, because it just, there is a, comparing the writing styles of seasons 3 of Picard and then Strange New Worlds and Discovery, early Discovery. I can't speak of anything beyond season 2. I really hate the Joss Whedon-esque type of writing that sort of dominates a lot of pop media right now. The sort of the over-the-top, quippy, snappy stuff. It's either a mixture of like, everything seems to be like Joss Whedon screwed Gilmore Girls and these are all their children.
It's very fair. It's a very, very fair way of putting it.
It really does. It does irk me. It does irk me a bit.
I think some of that is also the issue of, and I know these are streaming shows, and obviously you can argue that there is more time maybe in a streaming show to find your audience. But if you're on network TV, if you're not a hit within the first 5 minutes of your pilot episode, then you're basically done.
Yes.
And it's now, I think that's partly to blame for this style of writing that is across most of TV these days.
Yes.
Because if you don't come out massively swinging, you're just done for.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm sure TNG wouldn't have even survived now. If Encounter at Farpoint was the first episode of something that came on now, no one would watch it and it would be gone. Yeah. You wouldn't even make it to the crazy Tasha Yar gets kidnapped and has to fight a woman to the death.
In that very, very awkward episode of TNG. Yeah. No one talks about that one. That one is such, it really does feel like such a callback to TOS. You can tell that was a TOS writer on that episode. Oh man. I think it's the smirkiness, it's the quippiness, it's the, like, we know so well the character of Spock and Uhura, even though Uhura doesn't have a lot of depth to her. We know how she acts, and we're getting these versions of them that don't really connect. And I could excuse the JJ movies because alternate timeline, and they're just doing whatever they want, right? And it's such an alternate timeline in that it starts from Kirk's birth, so everything is different from the way they grew up is entirely different. Kirk and Spock, right? Because of these events. So that, to me, I'm like, that gives it enough. The universe has changed enough for that to work for me. So fine. But if this is not meant to be the Kelvin timeline, then not enough has changed for me to accept that this is a totally different world. And that in that case, then things need to really match up really well with TOS. If that's what you're doing, if you're adamant of doing this prequel show, then you have to do that, and you haven't. And again, with Strange New Worlds, things that bugged me were the Spock and why has his fiance's name gone out of my head?
Not gonna happen.
That one. So the fact that they rewrote for some reason their whole story, like she proposed to Spock That's not how they were engaged from birth. It was arranged marriage. Like, why are you rewriting that? What are you doing? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Whilst he's flirting with Nurse Chapel.
Yeah, yeah. It's like this, things like that kind of. I'm like, well, are you even trying to connect the tissue here? And it's like I don't feel that you are. So it's things like that bug me. But anyway, I'm going off tangent. So yeah, with the trailer, it was more of the quips, and I think when you have the individual who pilots the ship, who just always seems to be smirking. And I'm like, why are you always smirking? Why is everything this like? It was funny when Data was smiling while he's piloting the Enterprise through the Borg ship, right?
Yeah.
That was a funny moment. Or like when Spock says, they're not the hell your whales. Like, yeah. That stuff is funny. But when you're just constantly smirking and you're constantly like, this is so fucking cool. Well, you are meant to be on a this is quasi-military stuff. Like, you need to be somewhat professional. Can you be a little bit professional?
Yeah.
You need to acknowledge your subordinates and your superiors, and that really doesn't happen. And so I think the goofiness of the trailer, the sort of slappy humorness of it, didn't really work for me. That Kirk, the Vampire Diaries Kirk that we got, just like what I don't. Why? Like, look at Chris Pine. Like, why would you? Why?
Because he's in the season finale of season 1, but through obviously quite an interesting sort of plot device in that they repeated an episode of TOS, but did it from a different angle. And that worked. That using him in that way worked because it tied us into something from the original series. So I'm interested to see how they think they can bring him in, or how much of this season he's going to be in.
Yes, yeah. Well, and the other thing that kind of irked me straight away is I don't want Khan. Why is there a descendant of Khan on the Enterprise?
Which hasn't been addressed yet.
There just should not be. Just the coincidence of Khan's descendant being on this ship that in about 10, 15 years from now is going to pick up your descendant out in the middle of space and become the rival of this ship for all eternity. Like what's the thinking behind that? But in addition to that, now having this Khan descendant be attracted to Kirk, I'm like, really? You're gonna go there, and they're gonna go there. They're gonna kiss. They're gonna make it happen. It'll happen, and then I'll just be like, why would you do that? That doesn't make sense. There was a few months ago, there was a writers Guild of America roundtable chat online event with Star Trek writers, and I had writers from TNG, DS9 through to Terry Metalis and a couple from Strange New Worlds, Discovery, and Lower Decks. And it was really interesting when they were talking to some of the new Trek writers, and basically they're sort of, from my understanding, they just basically will try and play with whatever they can canon wise. Which I was like, well, why don't you stop playing with canon and just write your own stories? Like, why do you need to write a Gorn episode where the Gorn are now flesh gobbling alien ripoffs, right? Like, and those sort of add to all the reasons why this show doesn't fully land for me, because it's like, I like Pike, I like Rebecca Romaine as number one. I don't like Nurse Chapel. She's too poppy for me. She needs, like, Nurse Chapel. You can explore the character, but like blatantly you can tell that Majel Barrett is playing her as a very sort of straight individual, not like hippie. So there's bits like that I'm like, I don't think this really matches with the original pilot. I don't think it matches with what we've seen in the Menagerie. I don't think it matches what we see. Yeah, so those are all of my gripes. So when I saw this trailer, I just thought, especially that Spock line, "I want the ship to go now." Like, that they all just in the writers' room just were laughing their asses off, thinking that was hilarious. But it was juvenile. It was juvenile, and I thought, it's Star Trek doesn't need to break the fourth wall. There is plenty of room for humor in Star Trek. I mean, Star Trek 2 is a laugh, not so true, but Star Trek 4 is a laugh a minute. I mean, when Kirk leans up to on the truck and tells the doctor lady, I can't remember her name now, but I think he did a little too much LDS, and she's like, "Do you mean LSD?" He's like, "Oh yeah." There is a lot of really good humor and that plays throughout it. Worf is a laugh a minute in TNG. Like, there's so much there to like, and laugh at, that you don't need this kind of humor. And so I feel like falling back on it just doesn't need to happen. You can write a smarter show. And I think you need to trust your show. You need to trust your audience, and you need to not write down. And I think there's a lot of writing down with some of this stuff. They're writing to the lowest common denominator viewer. They're writing to the dude bros who go and watch Marvel, and and I'm like, you don't need to do that. Like, you will have a big audience. You don't need to cater to the Transformers crowd. Please stop. You just don't need to. And I guess it's no coincidence that Alex Kurtzman did work on multiple Transformer movies. So it's things like that. I don't know. That's my big rant. Did that answer your question?
I think so. Yeah, it did.
The trailer didn't land for me, and that's kind of a general overview of why Strange New Worlds. We went past the 2:59 minute.
Oh yeah,
we did. That's kind of why some of that stuff doesn't work for me. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on the Section 31 film and the idea of event movies instead of having more series?
So we talked a lot about Section 31 last time, didn't we? And there is definitely a strange fixation with that at the moment, which I'd like to move on from. However, I like this idea. I can be much easier. It was much easier to sell me on an idea of, well, I mean, if Michelle Yeoh's in it, you don't really need to sell it to me at all. But if you're trying to sell me on Section 31, then if it's some kind of...
Sorry, that was an accident. I was trying to stop it.
Dan from accounts is back. If it's some kind of weird Star Trek fringe event that Michelle Yeoh's Section 31 needs to go and solve, then I'm on board for it as a movie event. I'm interested to see, is this going to be how they bring people back now, rather than the Picards as a sort of 3-season thing? Will it be a Janeway movie? Will it be, are they going to pick certain characters out who we would like to see more of and do it more in an isolated setting than 30 episodes across 3-4 years that is maybe not great to begin with and finds itself at the end?
Yeah, it's possible. And the idea of it doesn't bother me. I like it. I think it could work if it's allowing time to really focus the story. Because again, you have the mystery box is another big thing that I think hurts a lot of these seasons. We don't need mystery box every time. Just write your mystery, just write your story, just go for it. We don't need the tantalizing stuff. The Red Angel was so stupid, which is why I'm so glad that Picard 3 worked, because we had the mystery box, we had what is going on with Jack, and that made me nervous, but they pulled it off remarkably well. I so good. So I kind of like this idea of these concentrated stories that maybe it will help focus some stuff like that. We'll see. Who would you like to see in a reunion? If we're going to talk movie events, one-off movie events, who would you like to come back and see, given an opportunity to come back?
I would like to see what Janeway is doing. I mean, she's obviously doing interesting stuff in Prodigy, but I would like to see where she is after that comes to an end. They maybe don't have much wiggle room with her like they did with Picard, because we now have 20 odd episodes of Prodigy that exist and another 20 on the way, which kind of have pigeonholed her into this admiral role that she's in, albeit trying to zip across time to find out what's happened to Chakotay. But I would like to see where she is. Who else would I like to catch up with? I would like to know what Miles is up to now.
Yes.
What is Miles up to? Maybe there's not an event. There's probably not an event movie in the character like Miles O'Brien.
But there is a Deep Space Nine event,
which you can tell me all about. I don't know who else I'd like to see. I guess TNG is mine that I grew up with. I've now got that. My bucket list has been filled. I'm happy.
It's true. It's true. With TNG having their big finale, there's, in terms of legacy characters, we're dwindling as to who we really want to see, and it really just boils down to Enterprise. I mean, come on, it's not that great, guys. Let's be real. Deep Space Nine and Voyager. I would be up for seeing some Voyager stuff. Deep Space Nine, I would love to see. So in the documentary Best What We Left Behind, they did a mock writers room, and basically they kind of broke ground on what would be the first episode. And essentially what would happen is Nog zooms out of the wormhole. I think he's on the Defiant. He comes out of the Defiant. He comes out of the Defiant, and his ship gets blown up, and he dies straight away. But not before he transmits a message that there's kind of some nefarious stuff going on. Nog's death basically brings all of the crew back to Deep Space Nine for a funeral sort of situation. Molly is working with Starfleet, and O'Brien is teaching and stuff like that at the academy. I think Bashir and Dax are on a ship together. Kira's no longer in charge of Deep Space Nine. She's become a Vedic.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Actually, no, I think she is still in charge of Deep Space Nine, but she's a Vedic. And she's kind of, instead of being this warrior, she's now this religious leader, religious figure. Wow. And I can't remember what's happening with Jake Sisko, but basically this first episode would be about Nog's death. What's the big mystery going on with Nog? What did he uncover? And bringing everyone back together. They then learn that there's a new breed of Jem'Hadar.
Interesting.
Coming. And that Kira is connected to them. So what is she doing with this new breed of Jem'Hadar? And then at the very end of the episode, you get your big moment where Benjamin Sisko comes back. And he comes back to the promenade, and he's standing in front of Jake and his other son that he's never met, whose name I can't remember what they were going to call him. And you have this, the big moment. And so then there obviously that's the end of the episode, and they would then explore all that throughout the rest. But I'm like, that would be great.
Yeah.
Do that in a 2.5-3 hour movie of a Deep Space Nine reunion where they bring everyone back. They tell one more story with these people. Because Picard 3 was basically a 10-hour movie, as they say. It really was. And that's why I say you could probably condense it, because first 4 episodes is Act 1, next 4 is Act 2, and the last 2 are Act 3. Consolidate that to a 3-hour, 4-hour epic. Why not?
Yeah.
So I would, that idea lives in my brain all the time, and I because of the doc and it was them. To me, I'm like, that is just what happens with Deep Space Nine. That is the next.
That's in your head canon now.
Yeah, like that is what happens. Sisko comes back. It's 30 or 20 years, 20, 30 years later. Kira is in a really different position now. She's, we didn't get to Odo. They didn't talk about Odo or anything like that because he was still alive at the time because he's in the doc. And stuff. But yeah, so it's fascinating. I'm like, I would love to see these guys given the chance to explore this story in some fashion, because Deep Space Nine ended in a way that blatantly should have been given a film, and should have been able to continue the Star Trek legacy through cinema. Because I mean, what we got with the rest of the TNG crew was crap. Insurrection wasn't good, which came out before this. I guess that was 1998, but Nemesis was terrible. You could have done something with both of these. You could have done both these crews back at the time, but Deep Space Nine deserves a swan song, because season 7 is the weakest of all of Deep Space Nine, I think. It struggles because it's trying to explore Ezri Dax the whole time, and it's like that held it back from.
It pulls the focus from the Dominion War in a way, doesn't it?
Yeah. And that's, I love the actress who plays Ezri Dax. Ezri Dax is a decent character. But it was, we rewatched Deep Space Nine before we did TNG, and that was my big takeaway from that. I was like, ooh, season 7. I remember watching it live as a kid, loved a lot of it, but rewatching it, I was like, oh, yeah, some of this stuff is hurt by they've introduced this new character who is part Dax, who is Dax. You got the Worf issue, you got the Bashir stuff, and all that is taking away from progressing the story. We just didn't need a new person. Just carry on with the cast you got.
Yeah, I did think it was weird that they kept Dax around.
Yeah.
It didn't do anything other than screw up Worf and pull focus for me.
Yeah. I've never liked the fact that they killed Jadzia. But how can you get Jadzia off Deep Space Nine and not take Worf?
Yeah. Although, do you know the history behind that?
I remember there was she wanted a raise, rightfully so, I think, and they were like, no, and she was like, fuck you, I'm gone.
So I watched an interview with her the other day, and it was from back in the day, and she was saying that she was just exhausted, and that she asked to reduce her episode count.
Oh, interesting. That wasn't in the doc, I don't think.
Interesting.
So I don't think it was. I don't. But
I'll have to find it. But for what she was saying in this interview, she said she wanted to reduce the time on the show, and she went to them and said, "Look, I am still happy to do 8, 10, 12 episodes, like whatever you feel like. Let's try and find something that works. That means that I'm not here being painted at 5 o'clock every morning,
right?
8 months of the year." And they went, "No, everything or nothing." And she went, "Fine, all right, bye."
That bit rings a bell, where they were like, that everything or nothing, that rings a bell, or what we're going to give you or nothing. That I don't know if they mentioned that in the doc. That's interesting. I'll have to go back and rewatch it. You should definitely watch it as well. But there was
I really should.
There was contractual stuff that was the problem. That I do remember that. She was she got screwed. She got screwed big time, which was different, really frustrating for her and the viewers. I never wanted Jadzia to die.
No.
She didn't. All those tweets going around, what character didn't deserve their fate? Jadzia Dax did not deserve her fate. So that I would love a Deep Space Nine reunion. I think that would be great. It really is a shame that we haven't gotten that, and I think I would love it, but I would only really be confident about it is if like Ira and all of the others who were in charge of Deep Space Nine came back and were in charge. A bit like Terry Matalas, who had his run on Star Trek, understood Star Trek, respected Star Trek in a way that I think it deserves. I think
I agree.
You need to be able to. When you're coming into an established character, an established franchise, you need to be able to understand the legacy, understand what's important to it, not do things that are going to piss off the fans, but also have fun with it. And I think that's again, thinking about Nick Meyer, who came into Trek. He didn't know anything about it, didn't understand it. And then when he understood it, he knocked it out of the park. Yeah. And he didn't do anything that was shocking to the characters. He just put them through the ringer.
I guess with Voyager, and there's no way that you could do this now. But I would love to have seen what happened in the first couple of years after they got back.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like
That
there has to have been some like Delta Quadrant PTSD there, but
you would think. You would think.
where that would have to be in a book or a comic book or something. Now you obviously could. They're all far too old to play themselves as they were back then. Now, but that is a story I would love to. I would love to know what happened in those immediate moments.
Yes, that I think that's another reason why it's a bit of a shame that Voyager ended so quickly. Its finale was so quick that we didn't like let them get to Earth. We saw a parallel version of them all on Earth and happy,
Yeah,
but we never saw them on Earth. This crew on Earth and happy, or wherever they needed to go. We don't even see Tom Paris go meet his child.
no.
The child is born and given to B'Elanna, and then the doctor comes up to the bridge and is like, "Oh, Tom, you should come down and meet your kid." And Janeway's like, "You better get down there." And then he's like, "Okay," and then that's it. I'm like, we don't even see him and B'Elanna have a nice moment with his new family. What? Really? All right.
Yeah.
All right, if you insist. That's a bit nonsense, but whatever. Yeah, Voyager didn't end on a good note. It's such a shame. It wasn't an awful note, but it was a little underdeveloped. Could have been more.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, this was good fun.
3 hours 15.
I know, right? I mean, there's so much to talk about. I suppose when Strange New Worlds comes out, I would be happy to do some Strange New World chats. We could definitely do the first episode, and I will be measured, and I will be, but I'll be honest. If I like something, I like it. If I dislike it,
absolutely. You can't force yourself to like it.
The thing is, unlike that jackass who was in the chat earlier via Twitch, who I blocked. It's one thing to like, say you don't like something, but it's like you were saying earlier, you need to have an opinion as to why you don't like something.
Yeah.
If you can honestly tell me why, then I'm fine with that. Then we can have a discussion about it. Because I'm not going to sit here and write off every aspect of Discovery and every aspect of Strange New Worlds, because there are bits that I like. I think Pike is quite cool, but there's a lot about the show that I don't like. So it's a mixed bag, but it's a mixed bag. But we can watch season 2 and have some chats about it. Maybe I'll come around, but probably not. But I'll give it a good go. I might try and watch catch up with Discovery. When does season 3, 4, or 5 of Discovery come out?
Not till next year.
Next year, okay. Yeah.
So because they are ending it, they'd finished shooting. I think the whole season's finished actually, or was finished, but was finished before the decision that this would be the final season. So they have been given extra budget and extra time to retool some of the end of the season to make it a series ending rather than a season ending, because this was never envisioned to be the end when they shot it.
Interesting.
So Paramount, the head of kind of programming, whatever you want to call it, at Paramount has basically said they've passed their peak of how much they're going to spend on original content, and they now need to curb their spending. So I think that's that's going to be the main reason why Discovery's ending, because it's not going to pick up any new audience members now. It's done its thing. It would just have continued as it was for another couple of years. Strange New Worlds won tons of awards, much better reviews than Discovery's ever gotten. Yeah. So it's the flagship show, knowing that Picard was coming to an end. So I think that's why they've decided to end that, and probably also why we don't have a fleet of new shows come in. We're looking at movies instead, because less money spent, bigger impact potentially.
So here's a controversial question. No, I'm talking like that. Question for you. Enterprise is generally deemed a failure. It had 5 seasons.
do we now call it a failure when Picard has only 30 episodes?
Well, Picard was only meant to have 3 seasons, right? That's what they said. And that makes sense because Patrick Stewart he's up there. He's up there in age, and you got to be realistic. But Stranger Worlds, Discovery's only had 5 seasons. And we're if that is the case, that they're like, too much money, not doing it, we're cutting your money. That's kind of Enterprise. Enterprise wasn't doing well, so they cut it. Is that not the same for Discovery? And what does that say about the management Discovery? This isn't about actors or anything like that. But is the reason Discovery is being cut because it's not connecting with audience, because it's not connected with Trek fans, and it's probably only gained what audience it's going to get, and Trek fans like me who love Picard season 3 are like, no, I'm not going to give that the time of day because it doesn't give the time of day to Star Trek.
I think it's also the fact that the older shows get, the more expensive they get as well. I mean, it's probably the biggest budget because they used the AR wall technology in the last season, which most of Strange New Worlds was shot using that. But the 3 seasons before that, you're talking about wall-to-wall CGI that was going on in that show. And so it's probably the most expensive of the 3, of the 5, if you include the 2 animated shows, which will be the cheapest to produce. It's the cheapest, the longest running. The most expensive, the longest running. So actually, that's probably the first one that you think, is there really any mileage in continuing this? If as a streaming service, we need to cut 40% of our expenditure on shows, you immediately go, unless it was huge, which, I mean, they've always said that it's been the highest rated show on the platform until Strange New Worlds came along. It's sort of the first one to go. But you're right. I mean, it is ending earlier than they thought it was supposed to. But at the same time, we wouldn't have Strange New Worlds, Lower Decks, Prodigy, and Picard if we didn't have Discovery. So it's sort of a double-edged sword, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I'm tired, so my words are slurring together. It's interesting because I mean, if we hadn't got that, what would we have gotten? I think we would have gotten something. We would have gotten whether we would have gotten what we have now, I doubt it. But Discovery wouldn't have, Discovery would have ushered it. A different show other than Discovery still would have, I think, ushered in some new wave of Star Trek shows. But I have to admit that, if Discovery is if Picard is the consequence of Discovery, then I'll accept it.
And so the other thing is, again, I see so much hate for Discovery on social media that when I was at New York Comic Con for the Star Trek panel, I presumed everyone was going to be there for TNG because it was them reuniting the cast on stage. Countless people in Discovery uniforms. People crying at the sight of Sonequa Martin Green in the captain's chair up on the big screen. Massive love for that crowd. There is a enjoyment out there in saying that no one's watching it, no one cares about it, and it's awful, but it's not. It has, I mean, it might be a niche audience, but it certainly has an audience of people that absolutely love it for what it is.
Yeah, and that's true, and I think a lot of people do like to kind of jump down that trail of, oh, it's all terrible. I'm very mixed on it, but it's a show that I don't watch because I haven't fully connected with it, but I also can't deny that there clearly there's blatantly been enough people watching to keep it going for 5 seasons. And now they've reached a point where there's not enough people watching it to carry on beyond 5 seasons, which is essentially what happened on Enterprise. Because I didn't watch Enterprise. I was around. I could have. I didn't like it.
We don't really have, in this day and age, we don't really have that whole 7-season thing like we used to have with Star Trek.
No.
Streaming shows, Netflix is, the one that's been around the longest, and they will either kill something off at 4 years or they'll kill it off at 1.
Yes.
We don't really have. There isn't sort of a magic number, because it's like, all of the Star Trek shows ran for 7, Buffy ran for 7. All of those big shows from when I was younger, it's like 7. If you make it to 7, then you've been successful and you'll probably come to an end. Yes. Now you've got Grey's Anatomy going into season 25 million, and it's like, Okay, do you run forever until literally no one cares, but somehow you're still watching, or
Yes.
do you go out on top? And I'm gonna. This is I. It, Discovery is going to go out at probably one of its best seasons from
I
what I've seen of it.
it'll be interesting. I feel it
They could
wouldn't.
do a movie. I'd watch a movie of Discovery actually.
Oh, that's interesting.
If you condensed one of their serialized arcs down into a 2-hour movie, it would probably be blockbuster stuff.
That's fascinating. I would have to watch it. Is it season 4 where they jump into the future? Or is it season 3?
3. So they went at the end of 2, and then the consequences of it are in 3.
That's right. I still what I'll do because I if I'm gonna be fair, I would want to know the whole story. So maybe I will catch up with it just to see, because this is what's also difficult for me is I don't want to pass judgment on two seasons of a show that I've
Yeah.
never seen anything from
Yeah.
at all. So yeah. So
Season
I
4, for instance, would
mm,
probably make a good movie if you condensed it. So I won't spoil anything, but
mm.
essentially the thing that they're up against in season 4 is an alien race that is destroying whole planets.
Okay.
And half of
Crystalline.
the season is from the perspective of, oh my god, who the hell is coming after us?
Mm,
Because they have enough technology to just wipe out an entire civilization, whole
mm,
planet in one go.
mm.
And then the closer you get to finding out what is actually going on, you get the flip side of the coin, which is actually, is this just somebody who is finding sustenance to survive?
Mm.
Is So actually, is this a malicious thing, or is this just somebody fighting for survival, which is exactly what we do?
Yes.
We
I
just
like
try
that.
and survive.
Yeah.
And so it's really high stakes. And if you cut it down from a lot of the wandering around trying to get there, there is a narrative that would work quite well in a 2.5 hour movie.
That's interesting. That's very crystalline entity kind
Yes.
of idea. So that's very tricky. That is very, very tricky. That's interesting. Yeah, maybe I will. I will.
Wait till it's finished and then just do the whole thing.
Yeah, that would be ideal. That'd be a good thing to do, actually. Yeah. But then there's so much time, and I have little. We'll see. Kid on the way. I might have to binge some things. Before that happens. But
Something to watch during sleepless nights.
exactly. Um, any other final Star Trek thoughts before we close out?
I can't wait for Lower Decks to come back.
When does that come out? When does
That should be end of July, beginning of August.
Okay, right around the corner.
So at the moment, I'm really, really hoping that the cast are going to be at San Diego Comic-Con.
Right, because you're going.
And I have a press pass, and I would like to talk to the cast of Lower Decks, please. Anyone from the Star Trek gods that might be listening. Yeah.
That would be cool. Does that mean, so if you got a press pass, do you get to like slip in all the back doors and get around all of the long queues?
I don't know how it will work at this one yet. Hopefully, yeah.
That'd be nice.
And it just means that once all the different press teams start sending out this is who we're going to have, this is who's going to be available for interview, would you like to pitch for them? I will be on all of those mailing lists to find out who is there.
Yes. Oh gosh, yes, man. That's awesome, dude. That's going to be fun. That's going to be fun. I would love to one day to go to a big Comic-Con like that. One of these days. I'll wait for my kid to get older, and then that'll be the excuse. We'll go to a big Comic-Con. That'll be fun. That'll be fun. Cool. Yeah, I think I'm sort of like I've talked out of everything that I wanted to say. Picard season 3 was incredible.
The grieving process can now begin.
I laughed, I cried, I didn't jump for joy, but I was emotional. There were moments, Shaw's death, Seven becoming captain, Shaw's final message to Seven, elicited emotions. Picard and them saying goodbye to the Enterprise D and the powering down, and
I miss that voice.
Majel Barrett's voice one more time. So much goodness in that season. I messaged a few people from the show and I was like, fucking knocked out of the park. Because I don't want to spoil anything on Twitter. If I can, every once in a while, I can't believe you did this. This was great. Or I can't believe you did this. How dare you? How dare you kill Shaw? How dare you kill? I'll never forgive them for the death of Tavine. I will never forgive them. But you know what? It makes sense that they killed her because she was older.
Yes.
It makes sense now because everyone else on that bridge was affected.
Yeah.
He was the one who was beyond that point. Makes sense. Makes sense. And now, because now in hindsight, it's like, oh, that's why they did that. That's why, of all the people,
It had to be
Vadic didn't kill the young. I can't remember that ensign's name, but the ensign with the green stuff on their face. Yeah, it all makes sense. It's all sensible. But yeah, well, this was fun. A good 3.5 hour chat about Star Trek. I don't mind it. These are like the big topics. Whenever I talk Star Trek-y stuff or when I talk about DC stuff, these episodes go super long, and I don't care.
Absolutely.
If anyone's listening who's managed to stick around this whole time, make sure to like and subscribe, and don't be a dick like that one guy earlier on who was chiming in from Twitch. I think he was chiming in from. Anyway, where can people find you, Neil?
People can find me on social media at Neil Vagg. I am on all major platforms. You can find me there, or you can find us podcast and everything else, which is at Get Your Comic Con.
There you go. Get Your Comic Con. Yeah, we will be back sometime in the future to talk about more Star Trek or other things. Whatever takes strikes a fancy.
I'm like you. I just pop in every now and then.
Yeah. And I like it. You can come back anytime. Yeah, I will go to bed soon because it's been a long one. But anyway, thanks for listening, everybody. We will see you in the future. And enjoy your nights or days or wherever you are. Enjoy your time. Until next time. See you later.